Let's dive into an epic mystery. Our resilient hero, Theo, looks back on his past, wondering if life was always meant to be this wild. Maybe he should have skipped it. Right until the story flashes back to his wild days in the unit. Captain Bram screams Theo's name, demanding why hauling water takes forever. He yells at our boy to stop goofing around. Carrying 2 heavy buckets, Theo apologizes and promises to bring them right away. But Bram isn't satisfied, growling menacingly as he stomps closer. Suddenly, Bram delivers a huge kick to Theo's side, shouting that he's totally late. Theo goes flying with a grunt, watching in shock as water spills all over the ground. Bram towers over him, screaming he's a useless rookie who can't even carry a cup of water. Startled, strong-willed, Theo stays grounded, apologizing profusely and offering to fetch more water immediately. Back at the well, Theo hauls another heavy bucket. He mutters that using magic would be easier. Annoyed, they make him do boring physical labor instead. As he gazes up at the massive walls, he wonders how long this absurd life will continue. Knowing exactly what mysterious event started his unfair downward spiral. Now watch closely. Flashing back to his early days, Theo walks into a dark tent and totally freezes. He catches Captain Bram forcefully pinning down a struggling female knight. The villainous Bram tells her to stop squirming, acting like a total creep. In total shock, our brave Theo calls out, realizing he just caught Bram attacking a fellow comrade. Next up, a courtroom. The judge loudly declares attacking a comrade is an absolutely unforgivable act. He addresses Theo directly, handing down the ultimate punishment. Theo yells for them to wait, desperately pleading his case. He swears he only witnessed the crime, and Captain Bram is the actual guilty culprit. A guard tells Theo to hush. Standing nearby, Bram smugly mocks him for pinning his sins on others. A court official seals Theo's fate, stating they have testimony confirming our guy actually committed the crime. In the courtroom, Theo stares in pure disbelief, whispering Ferris's name. Turns out, the victim's own testimony sealed his fate. Theo just cannot understand why she mysteriously decided to frame him as the fake culprit. But right as his guilt is confirmed, Bram launches his petition. He stands before the court, swearing to take responsibility for the rookie. He promises to reform him if they let him watch over Theo for life. You saw that coming, right? Desperate to avoid a scandal, the higher-ups actually approve this crazy arrangement. 4 long years pass, and Theo basically becomes Bram's personal servant. Our boy notes that for years, he hasn't just been doing cooking and laundry chores. He also served as a literal punching bag for Bram's crazy temper. He honestly admits there were days his strong spirit almost broke entirely. Still, he finds moments of peace cooking, noting it's the one thing he truly enjoys doing. He tastes his soup made with the seasoning called shoyu. Finding it slightly salty but useful, he decides to buy some more at the market. He takes another quick sip, deciding it's not bad at all. Suddenly, Bram appears and dumps his drink into the stew, ruining it completely. He aggressively asks why making dinner is taking so long. Theo panics and apologizes, promising to finish plating right away. But Bram isn't even interested in the food. He kicks the pot, spilling stew everywhere. He screams they don't need that junk, calling Theo an idiot. He then turns to address the whole squad. Bram announces his squad will move out tomorrow, taking on an epic quest to exterminate a dangerous monster. Soldiers discuss huge footprints found near the eastern village, estimating a rank B threat. Someone mentions that local adventurers are also moving to intercept this mysterious beast. Hearing this, Bram completely loses it. He declares that for their knightly honor, the credit must go to the Bram squad. He kicks Theo again, calling him a fool for tasting food when they must prepare for the mission. Bram continues striking Theo, shouting that it's weaklings like him dragging down the entire squad's morale. Paranoid that those pesky adventurers might steal the job's credit, he delivers another swift kick, screaming that this is entirely Theo's fault. In the background, Bram yells at his men to listen up, asserting they will take down those monsters regardless. Left badly bruised on the ground, Theo simply mutters a curse. Later, The fired-up squad is moving through the forest. One soldier boasts he'll be famous, while his buddy scoffs. So, what do you and I think? Will this squad survive? One arrogant soldier brags about finishing enemies instantly with his secret sword. But his buddy just laughs, totally mocking him for only fighting harmless scarecrows. As they march, stick with me, you and I are entering Lystria, a super peaceful kingdom where conflicts are super rare and local adventurers handle absolutely everything. While the others get totally hyped up for real action, our guy Theo hauls a ridiculously heavy pack. Honestly, he thinks a peaceful world is just the absolute best thing ever. Suddenly, while moving forward, Theo spots something super disturbing on the dirt. He mutters under his breath, carefully inspecting the ground. He quickly realizes those footprints are way too massive for any normal forest creature. He starts sweating bullets, terrified, wondering what giant monster leaves tracks like that. Meanwhile, the other clueless soldiers notice absolutely nothing. Then a gigantic shadow falls over everyone. The clueless soldiers literally think it's just heavy clouds, wondering if rain is coming. Theo looks up in absolute horror, instantly realizing that is definitely not a cloud. Now watch this. A massive dragon crashes down, proving Theo right. And let me tell you, this is definitely no ordinary beast at all. It's a terrifying dragon, a legendary monster ranked a tier or higher. Pure chaotic panic erupts instantly everywhere. The soldiers scream in absolute panic, totally running away. Captain Bram tries acting tough at first, loudly yelling at his frightened squad to hold their ground and keep formation. But the exact second that beast roars and snaps those huge jaws, Bram's fake courage vanishes. His expression twists in pure panic, and he spins around instantly, frantically screaming at the driver to get that carriage moving immediately, ordering a total retreat. Bram shamelessly scrambles onto the fleeing carriage. Theo sprints alongside it, completely desperate to survive. He loudly calls out, begging to hop on the ride. Bram stares down with a super twisted, evil smirk. He actually thinks this is his absolute perfect chance to eliminate an annoying loose end forever. He calls out Theo's name so mockingly, happily, telling him his timing is truly perfect today. As Theo reaches his hand out, desperately pleading, Bram violently kicks him square in the face. That brutal impact sends poor Theo flying backward, straight toward the raging monster. While the carriage speeds toward safety, Bram viciously shouts back, telling Theo to make himself useful for once and act as a distraction. I know what you're thinking. Game over, right? Theo just stares up, totally defenseless. He honestly wonders if his story ends today, but strangely, he feels totally calm. He figures his journey has been so insanely hard lately. Maybe just resting right here wouldn't be the worst thing in the entire world. The giant beast lunges forward to strike, but right before those massive jaws slam shut, a shining blade flashes out of thin air. An unbelievably powerful strike intercepts the dragon's fierce attack right near Theo's face, perfectly blocking that deadly bite with absolute precision. Pure crazy energy explodes everywhere as that blade connects. With one single, devastating strike, that massive dragon gets totally overwhelmed. Magical energy blasts outward as the beast goes down. Instantly, standing right over the defeated monster, this silver-haired girl calmly declares, "Victory achieved." Theo just stares at her, completely dumbfounded. He literally cannot process that she actually soloed a giant dragon instantly. He looks closer and suddenly connects the dots. He remembers rumors about a stunningly beautiful woman with pure white silver hair. The legendary Silver Princess, Ray Silverhorn. Theo starts sweating out of pure shock. This is that famous adventurer, the elite warrior who treats S-rank monsters like absolute jokes. Ray turns around, casually asking if he's hurt. Theo awkwardly stammers out his thanks, but she totally brushes it off. She honestly explains that rescuing him was just an accident. That giant dragon was her target anyway. She casually mentions taking a guild quest out west, but the monster actually escaped, so she chased it all the way to this exact forest. Suddenly, an insanely loud growling noise erupts from her stomach. Ray looks away, feeling super embarrassed. She quickly tells Theo to drop the fancy speech and just call her Ray. Theo panics, asking if she's sick, but immediately realizes what that sound meant. Hungry much? Ray admits she chased that big dragon for an entire week without eating or drinking a single thing. Theo looks absolutely horrified, wildly asking what kind of superpowered stomach she has to survive that. He nervously explains that normal adventurers usually just harvest the scales and claws. But Ray is completely fixated, staring right at that meat. Theo totally panics, yelling, "Wait." He explains that magical beasts have raw energy inside their flesh, meaning you cannot safely cook it unless you purify everything using holy water first. Ray casually asks if holy water is truly the only thing needed to eat it. She pulls out this ridiculously fancy glass bottle, asking if it works perfectly. Theo's eyes literally bulge right out. That is pure, supreme, holy water. He starts totally fanboying out, loudly shouting that the craftsmanship is unbelievable. Even the empty bottle alone is easily worth an absolute fortune. Ray just watches him geek out, begging to know if they can finally eat. Theo snaps back, apologizes, and happily confirms that with water this amazing, he can start cooking right away. Ray gives him huge hopeful eyes. "Trust me, you and I need to see more." "Alright, let's dive in." She openly admits she has never done chores and absolutely cannot handle it. Theo thinks he would love making her do it if she actually could, but seeing her utter helplessness, he totally caves in. He smiles and offers to do it, explaining it is just a deeply ingrained habit from his night days. Rai offers to pay him for his labor since she is zero help. But Theo panics, fully refusing her money. He reminds her that she is literally his savior, so he definitely will not charge her. Rai insists she wants to thank him somehow, but our guy firmly holds his ground here. Theo finally gets to work on the massive dragon. He realizes his knife will not even scratch it unless he follows the precise cuts Rai already made. He totally marvels at the tough scales, wondering exactly how much raw power Rai needs to cleave right through something this solid in one strike. With one final heavy heave, a massive block breaks loose. Theo wipes his brow, happily declaring that he got it off. Holding up supreme holy water, Theo tells Rai he is pouring it right over the food. As the liquid hits the dragon, it loudly hisses and steams, completely stripping away the dangerous magical energy. Once the wild reaction finally settles, Theo flashes a bright smile, loudly announcing the purification is complete. Rai, starving this whole time, pops up asking if she can finally eat. Theo enters full chef mode, explaining his cooking process. Now, first, he tells her to start a fire, then he adds herbs and spices before covering the entire meal with hot stones. He says they have to wait a little longer, carefully covering the whole thing with thick leaves to trap the heat. Rai watches him work, genuinely deeply impressed, and tells him he is truly skilled. Theo dims a little bit here. He admits he has been doing this exact chore for the Knight's Order for years. He thinks his glorified servant role has truly sunk in. Just then, a rumbling carriage coming down the road catches their quick attention. Theo actually notes that he saw that vehicle earlier today. Now pay attention here. Rai asks if those people are his comrades, and Theo completely freezes up. He confirms Bram and the others are his comrades, but his face goes totally dark. He realizes he must return to that awful night order after this meal. The heavy reality of facing his abusers weighs on him, until Rai suddenly says his name to snap him back out. Rai leans in super close, fully invading his personal space. She softly comments that he looks like he is hurting. She reaches out, gently touching the big bruise on his cheek, correctly deducing that this wound was never caused by monsters. She directly asks if something terrible happened between him and his knight comrades. Theo violently flinches and pulls away, stammering it is nothing. Rai immediately backs off, calmly assuring him it is totally fine to keep quiet today. She simply tells him she deeply respects people who have abilities she totally lacks. We both felt that one, right? Looking him in the eye, she says she respects his skills, pushing Theo to finally open up. He warns Rai before starting his story, telling her to simply stop him if it ever gets too boring. After sharing all the heavy details of his betrayal and abuse, he sadly looks down, asking if she is totally disillusioned yet. Rai gently smiles and says no. She warmly thanks him for sharing, adding he is really amazing. Theo is completely stunned that she listened, but Rai adds that talking about your painful past takes real courage. Theo literally starts tearing up. His world has not changed, but a massive emotional weight just lifted, simply because she truly listened. Today, wiping his tears away, he admits maybe he just needed somebody to hear him out. Pulling himself together, he quickly flips the subject, loudly announcing the meat should be ready. The pot steams perfectly. Theo calls out the perfect timing, and Rai happily notes it smells incredibly delicious. Theo takes a quick sample, confirming the quality. Rai jokingly asks if he is testing for poison, but he clarifies it is just a taste test. Theo beautifully plates the meal, saying he cannot ever serve bad food to his lifesaver. He urges her to eat, staring mesmerized at the meal. Rai says she can tell it is delicious just by looking. Theo notes presentation is part of the flavor. Rai politely thanks him and finally digs in. One bite, and Rai is instantly in pure heaven. Blushing, she is completely blown away by the flavor. She rambles about how hard it is believing dragon meat tastes this incredibly good. Analyzing the rich umami and praising his stellar presentation, she suddenly declares she is fully convinced. Theo looks at her, pretty confused by that statement. Rai looks him dead in the eye, absolutely serious. She says you, then firmly declares, I want. You and I just watched his brain totally short-circuit. Shocked by her bold declaration, the meat on his fork drops right onto the floor. Stick with me here. Theo completely misinterprets her bold confession, stammering about what wanting him actually means. Rai just ignores his total confusion. Stuffing her face, she explains she is terrible at chores and wants him to run her house. Then she casually drops the salary, 100,000 gold monthly. Theo completely loses his mind, yelling that it is way too much. Rai totally misreads his freakout, assuming he is insulted by the low offer, and immediately promises to pay even more gold. Theo gets super serious, stopping the negotiation to remind her that even among the knights, he has absolutely no place left. With a gentle smile, Rai reaches her hand out, telling him that she will be his place to belong. Taken completely aback, Theo stammers out a thank you, but he still hesitates. Seeing him hesitate, Rai goes into full panic mode, yelling about throwing more money at him. Theo has to shout back that the gold is not what he is worried about, trying to push her away for her own good. Theo yells that his tragic backstory might be a complete lie. He asks what happens if he is actually a terrible person, insisting that trusting him right now is completely impossible. Rai calmly shuts that down, claiming she senses lies easily. Holding up one finger, she adds that a bad person could never make food this delicious. That is her special skill. Rai finally gets real with him in the quiet forest. She admits that hearing his story really helped her understand his painful past struggles. While she feels sympathy, she makes it clear that she also desperately needs the amazing household benefits he can provide her. She plainly states the final choice is his. Theo echoes the word and Rai confidently confirms he should totally pick her. As Theo just stands there processing, doing housework for 100,000 gold a month. Pay close attention here. Rai starts sweating, terrified. He thinks this sweet deal is a massive scam. Rai nervously asks about his decision, but Theo loudly cuts her off, firmly declaring that he will accept her wild offer. Mentally, he accepts his old life is done, deciding to dedicate his future to her. Rai beams with joy, properly reintroducing herself as the one and only Rai Silverhorn. Theo introduces himself simply as Theo. They officially seal their new deal with a handshake. Later, they arrive at a strange building. Shocked, Theo asks Rai where on earth they are. She casually replies, it is her house. The place is an absolute disaster zone, with trash and clutter piled high like a landfill. Theo stares in pure horror, asking if she seriously calls this mess a house. Rai looks away, whistling innocently while reminding him she explicitly stated she cannot do housework. Theo gets a sinking feeling that even for 100,000 gold, he definitely sold himself way too short. Early next morning, Theo is working hard scrubbing the filthy house. Wiping sweat from his forehead, he steps back to proudly admire his massive cleaning progress. He satisfyingly declares that, for the time being, the kitchen is finally perfectly usable again. Rai wanders into the room, yawning loudly. Rubbing her sleepy eyes, she asks Theo if he was up all night scrubbing the place. Theo cheerfully replies that since he is hired, he must work hard to properly earn his expensive keep. Rai looks totally confused by the concept of work, until her eyes finally focus. "We both saw that coming, right?" she shouts in shock at the sparkling room. Theo deadpans that she is super slow catching on. Theo decides it is break time, gently suggesting they share some tea. Checking an old tea jar, he mutters, "They are fine." Sitting down with their warm cups, Rai gets super curious about his mysterious past. She directly asks why he originally joined the Knights. With a sigh, Theo opens up about his history. He explains that monsters took his beloved parents when he was little. He quickly adds that he was born in a remote village, and this is a super common countryside story, making it nothing unusual. He recalls the kind villagers helping him recover initially, but as time passed, he constantly felt like they were still strangers to him. He admits it was probably just childhood trauma, but the awkwardness of everyone constantly tiptoeing around his feelings made staying absolutely impossible. He tells her that is exactly why he left his village. Using the small savings his parents left behind, he enrolled in the Knight Academy, desperately seeking a brand new path forward. Theo laughs off the heavy mood, admitting he once considered avenging his parents, even though it was totally out of character for him. Looking at Rai with a super soft expression, he tells her he is so grateful she rescued him. He tries brushing off any pity, but Rai quickly interrupts the moment. She smiles warmly, calls his name, and thanks him. Now, they are turning heads, walking the busy market. "Trust me, you will want to see where they go next. Stick with me," the crowd instantly whispers, recognizing the famous Silver Princess, Rai Silverhorn. Everyone is mesmerized by her beauty, but their jealous eyes quickly shift to Theo, wondering who the heck this guy is. Theo feels the heavy pressure. Rai only brought him to report the dragon hunt, but honestly, the intensity of these angry glares is actually hurting him. Sweating nervously, Theo awkwardly apologizes, realizing that standing next to her brings way too much attention. He says she is insanely famous. Rai stays totally humble, claiming it is nothing special for an S rank. But Theo knows the real truth. Reaching that rank demands legendary achievements massive enough to actually earn a royal commendation letter. An elite S rank adventurer like Rai is a massive rarity, appearing once in 10,000 people. Theo boldly declares she is truly a national treasure. Rai looks at him with genuine confusion, asking what he actually means by national treasure. Realizing he is being way too intense, Theo quickly says never mind, and just drops it. Right then, they arrive at a massive building marked as the Adventurers Guild. Theo happily announces they have finally arrived here. Walking inside, Theo immediately thinks back to his knight days. He remembers his old squad, especially Captain Bram, always looking down on adventurers with pure disgust. But here, inside the guild, the vibe is completely, wonderfully different. The entire room completely explodes into cheers the second Rai walks in. Adventurers swarm around, shouting welcome back. Everyone is hardcore fanboying over her beauty, while Rai just looks slightly annoyed by the overwhelming reception. With the wild crowd screaming her name, Theo asks if she can actually handle this crazy chaos. Rai shrugs it off, completely used to the loud noise. They push through to the reception desk, where a friendly staff member warmly greets her and asks what brings her in. Rai gets straight to business, stating she finished the job and wants her reward. The receptionist checks the paperwork for the dragon hunt quest and asks if Rai has the materials. To prove it, Rai simply says she will bring it out, holding up a tiny box. Suddenly, boom, a massive dragon head materializes out of nowhere, slamming onto the counter. The receptionist stares blankly at the massive head, confirming it is real. Now pay attention here. Theo remembers yesterday when Ray's magic item box sucked in the entire fallen dragon. It completely blew his mind then, and it is still insane to witness now. Ray casually mentions she also has the rest of the dragon, sending the poor receptionist into an absolute panic. The receptionist frantically tells her to wait, insisting the guild hall is perfectly fine as is, and they will send a special team to collect the remains later. Ray asks if she can just summon the beast right there, but the terrified receptionist hits her with a firm nope. Theo stands there sweating, imagining the absolute disaster if Ray summoned a massive dragon inside this cramped room. It would instantly destroy the entire building. Moving on to business, the receptionist carefully presents 3 heavy bags of gold, announcing the reward is 1 million gold. The receptionist notes this is just a preliminary estimate, and the exact final calculation will come later. Ray nods and asks to deposit the bulk with the guild as usual, deciding to only keep 100,000 gold on hand. While this massive financial transaction happens, Theo is doing some frantic mental math. He quickly realizes a low-ranking knight only earns about 200,000 gold. This single dragon hunt is worth over 16 years of a knight's salary. Watching Ray, he can only think that the sheer scale of an S-rank adventurer is completely, utterly unbelievable. Suddenly, Ray turns and casually hands a massive bag of gold straight to Theo, telling him here is 1 million gold. She explains she completely forgot his monthly advance pay, so she is giving it now. You and I would panic too. Theo completely freaks out. Terrified, she is handing over life-changing cash inside the packed guild hall. The jealous crowd immediately starts whispering, wondering what the hell this random guy is to Ray and why she is paying him. Feeling the angry eyes of the jealous mob staring at him, Theo nervously thanks her, but urgently suggests they get out of there right now. Later, they head to the bustling market. Theo is genuinely excited by the produce, commenting on how incredibly fresh everything looks. Ray seems totally confused, asking why they need to buy food when they still have plenty of leftover dragon meat. Theo explains that just eating meat gets super boring. Real cooking is all about the perfect harmony of ingredients. Ray stares at him blankly for a second before simply replying that she completely sees his point. They stop at a vegetable stand run by a massive, intense-looking shopkeeper, who loudly asks what they are planning to make. Ray points to Theo, explaining that he is the one doing all the cooking. So, Theo awkwardly introduces himself. The huge shopkeeper leans in, noting he has never seen Theo before. Ray then casually drops a massive verbal bomb, stating they have decided to start living together. You and I know where this goes. The shopkeeper misunderstands, screaming in shock that Ray brought her husband. Let's dive in. Theo frantically waves, desperate to clear up this husband misunderstanding, but the damage is done. Suddenly, someone calls for Alvin, and a super handsome knight in shining armor steps right up. He glares at Theo with sharp, piercing eyes, demanding Ray explain who this guy is. Ray totally lacks tact here, casually dropping the bomb to Alvin. This is Theo. We live together. She casually introduces the newcomer to Theo, explaining that Alvin is a member of her family. Theo quickly realizes that family in the adventurer world essentially means a powerful clan or a party. He nervously stammers out a nice to meet you, but the atmosphere immediately turns incredibly tense. Alvin instantly gets aggressive, grabbing Theo right by the collar, sizing him up with a look of absolute disgust. He angrily claims he completely fails to understand this. He demands to know why Ray would ever choose a guy like this. Glaring intensely at Theo, he scoffs, loudly calling him a total weakling and stating that the two of them are completely mismatched. Ray strictly orders Alvin to release Theo right now, but Alvin ignores her, flashing a creepy, condescending smile, and tells her not to worry, because this will end very soon. Ray shouts his name in warning. Alvin just keeps rambling, obsessively, ranting that only truly strong warriors belong by her side. At this point, Rai has heard enough. Now watch closely. Her expression turns terrifyingly dark, commanding him one last time. The confrontation turns violent as Theo gets slammed hard against the ground. Alvin towers over him with a nasty sneer, asking if he cannot even take a basic defensive stance, laughing at how pathetic he is. But before Alvin can launch another strike, Rai steps right between them, radiating a deeply menacing aura. She warns Alvin that crossing this line means absolute zero forgiveness. Alvin looks completely shocked, asking if she would really raise her hand against her very own family. Rai does not back down at all. She coldly points out that Alvin ignored her demand first. With intense focus, she boldly declares that whoever tries hurting Theo deals directly with her. Realizing he totally lost this round, Alvin turns away in sheer frustration, yelling about what makes a weak guy like Theo so special, storming off, cursing. With Alvin retreating, turns her focus back to Theo and asks if he is okay. Theo is still visibly shaken, but stammers out his absolute relief. Ray apologizes for the crazy scene, casually explaining that Alvin can just be a bit emotional. Theo stares blankly at her, thinking that if that was just emotional, her family's standards must be completely disconnected from normal human logic. He literally pictures them as absolute monsters. While questioning her definition of a little bit, Rai gently cups Theo's face in her hands. Looking incredibly concerned, she softly tells him that she will absolutely never forgive anyone for doing something like that. Theo blushes hard, completely overwhelmed by her care, wondering if receiving this much kindness is really okay. Suddenly, the vegetable shopkeeper bursts into dramatic tears in the background. He is deeply moved by their supposedly beautiful married love, happily calling himself Uncle Bartle. He offers tons of free food. You saw that coming, right? Theo stands there, realizing this wild misunderstanding proves exactly why they are definitely not a real married couple. Theo gets straight to work in the kitchen, washing fresh vegetables under the tap. He chops them up on a cutting board with the perfect, steady rhythm, then tosses everything directly into a hot pan to sizzle. He seems completely mind-blown by the sheer quality of this cookware. Tears of pure joy stream down his face, fully realizing you can cook absolutely everything at the exact same time in this pan. He notes that Rai apparently bought exactly the pan she was told to buy. He mentally sends huge thanks to whoever recommended this incredibly wonderful cooking gadget. Watching the meal simmer, he happily observes that the meat stays perfectly thick while the vegetables turn out super chunky and incredibly juicy to match. Focusing on the finer details, Theo smartly decides to use light, not overly sweet rice to perfectly pair with this amazing meal. He mentions grabbing all sorts of top-tier ingredients from the market just for this moment. Now, he moves right into the finishing touch, the legendary spice. He excitedly explains his method, centering the flavor heavily on spiciness, topping it with bitterness, and adding amazing fragrance plus sweet accents for balance. He pumps himself up to go absolutely all out. The dish is finally plated, looking absolutely rich and hearty. Theo proudly announces that it is done. Ray sits at the table, staring with intense focus, saying it smells truly incredible. With Alvin and Theo sitting down, they quickly agree to start eating. Ray takes a huge spoonful of stew. The reaction is instant. Her eyes absolutely sparkle, and she heavily blushes, realizing the flavor is completely out of this world. Delicious. She breaks down the amazing flavor profile in her mind, noting how the incredible dragon meat, already great alone, mixes flawlessly with the crunch of fresh vegetables and rich spices, creating something truly unbelievable. She boldly declares that this taste is pure harmony. Theo smiles, praising her surprisingly great food reactions. And trust me, you and I just watched Ray decide she instantly needs to hunt more legendary dragons today. Theo totally panics, warning her that dragons might go extinct doing that. Plus, he reminds her, they still have plenty of meat. Ray completely ignores his worry, flatly stating when they run out, she will hunt more because she is definitely eating this again. Theo just watches Ray happily chowing down her meal. Stick with me here. She looks innocent eating, but you and I know her hidden power is absolutely unbelievable. She instantly holds out her plate, demanding seconds. Theo agrees, serving her right up. While working, he realizes cooking today was actually incredibly fun. Probably because, for the first time ever, he cooked for someone else. Later that evening, inside the mansion, a twin-tailed girl stands on a ridge overlooking the property. She hums thoughtfully, watching the house, noting Ray finally returned. The next morning arrives, sun pouring over the huge mansion. That peaceful vibe is instantly shattered when someone screams out a massive denial from inside the house. In the bedroom, Theo slowly wakes up, groaning as his eyes open. His vision clears and he instantly freezes. Ray is fast asleep, cuddling right on top of him. Theo starts stammering, completely freaking out while staring at her peaceful sleeping face. He frantically tries piecing his memory together, recalling that he and Ray were cleaning the bedroom late last night, and he mentioned feeling super exhausted. He realizes he passed out there. As reality hits, he mentally screams, wondering how he got into this wild situation. He desperately tells himself he must figure out a way through this crisis immediately. Super carefully, he slides out from under the covers without waking her. Once clear, he breathes a huge sigh, declaring himself safe. He sprints down the hall, realizing if Ray misunderstands what happened, getting fired is his absolute least worry. Don't blink. His life feels over, but he suddenly stops when an unexpected visitor actually arrives. Theo opens the front door to greet them, stammering out a polite good morning. The twin-tailed visitor skips the greetings completely. She just glares with pure disgust, demanding to know if he is actually acquainted with Ray. Before Theo can answer, this girl starts bawling her eyes out, screaming traitor at the top of her lungs. A quick flashback reveals her intense dramatic source. Apparently, she and Ray made a pact. Since no decent guys ever appeared, they would give up on love forever and just focus totally on work. She points an accusing finger, sobbing that Ray completely betrayed their deal. Suddenly, Ray calls out from inside, asking Theo what is wrong. Theo turns around, trying to explain this crazy visitor is losing it. But Ray calmly recognizes the girl as Cannon, noting she is noisy as always. Cannon is definitely not here to talk. She yells at Ray for acting so shameless, immediately unleashing an absolutely massive torrent of epic fire magic. She screams about Ray winning the romance race. Meanwhile, Theo completely panics, realizing he is caught in this massive crossfire. Ray never even flinches. She calls Cannon too loud, casually backhanding the magic attack and Cannon right with it. That epic slap sends the girl flying through the air, leaving the mansion. We both saw that, right? Theo watches her launch upward, nervously hinting Ray might have overdone it. A moment later, Cannon is back down, crying hysterically, still shouting wildly about betrayal. Theo looks highly concerned, asking if she is okay. Ray finally takes time introducing this weeping mess. This is Cannon Portliff, a member of her family clan, and an S-rank adventurer just like her. After quickly explaining Theo is just an employee, Cannon flips her mood instantly. She laughs loudly, declaring it all a giant misunderstanding. Wiping her tears, Cannon looks completely relieved, telling herself she should have known better. Ray could never get a boyfriend, but Ray, having zero social awareness, immediately drops a massive bomb. She casually mentions she actually slept next to Theo yesterday. Cannon instantly freezes, face turning pale as she stammers, assuming the absolute worst. Theo immediately screams in pure panic, clarifying they literally just slept side by side, and absolutely nothing else happened. Ray ignores the total chaos she caused, asking Cannon why she even visited. Cannon snaps to attention, finally remembering her mission. A brand new floor appeared in the labyrinth, and she is here to drag Ray along for a dive. Cannon is still screaming at Ray, asking if she treats friends like trash the exact moment she gets a shiny new boyfriend. Ray calmly replies she was just kidding and totally remembers their pact, though internally, she adds a silent thought, hoping she actually remembers. That is where we leave it. Cannon turns to Theo, confirms his name, and asks about joining their wild dive. Let's jump right in. Theo awkwardly smiles and declines, saying he will pass. He points to the mountain of junk, claiming he has a super important job. Stepping into one of the rooms, Theo instantly gets hit with a massive reality check. He stammers, totally overwhelmed, staring at a literal ocean of garbage and clutter filling the entire space. Apparently, Rai just dumped whatever she was handed straight onto the floor without giving it a second thought. But instead of giving up, Theo rolls up his sleeves. He notes this cleanup is going to be massive, but cheerfully shouts that he is starting with sorting. Ironically, he is exactly the kind of guy who gets completely fired up by huge messes. Meanwhile, deep inside the rocky labyrinth cave, Kanan and Rai are walking. Kanan asks why Rai suddenly decided to let Theo live with her. She points out that Rai always keeps people at a distance. So what possessed her to randomly start living under the same roof with a guy? Rai thinks for a moment. She mentions his cooking was absolutely delicious. But then she drops the actual, real reason. She says Theo actually looked right at her. Kanan is totally stunned by the simple answer and screams, asking if that is it. Rai just shrugs, claiming she really has not overthought it. Thinking back to their conversation, Rai explains further. Unlike everyone else who just sees an S-rank adventurer, Theo actually spoke to her like a normal, regular person. He talks so passionately about his hobbies, and she openly admits that listening to him honestly made her happy. Kanan bursts out laughing, teasing Rai that she is basically just bragging about her boyfriend. Now watch this reaction. Rai instantly turns freezing cold, stating she wasted her time explaining, and walks away. Kanan has to jog to catch up. Suddenly, she completely loses her footing and falls down a drop. Screaming loudly, she hits the ground with a thud. Rai, already waiting, scolds her carelessness. Right then, giant insect monsters start creeping out of the dark shadows around them. Kanan snaps right back, telling Rai to shut up and that she knows she is a clumsy person. The two girls are quickly surrounded by a massive swarm of giant bugs. A huge monster lunges forward to strike, while Kanan yells that she knows she is careless. In a split second, a massive slash cuts through the air, completely obliterating the enemy on the spot. The scene abruptly cuts from the dungeon chaos to the peaceful mansion hallway. Here, Theo is rhythmically pushing a mop around, looking incredibly happy while cleaning the floors. Back inside the quiet mansion, Theo wipes sweat off his forehead. He stares down the freshly cleaned hallway and lets out a super satisfied sigh, calling it a huge victory. Glancing out the nearby window, he notices it is already pitch black outside. He figures Rai and the others should be returning very soon. Just then, he hears a loud, sudden noise coming from the door. Thinking, speak of the devil, he cheerfully calls out a welcome back, but he freezes mid-sentence, letting out a surprised gasp at what is standing right in front of him. The door bursts wide open, and Theo immediately panics, loudly asking if they are okay. Rai and Kanan have completely collapsed onto the floor, looking absolutely wrecked and covered in dungeon filth. Rai loudly groans that she is starving. Kanan, face planted on the floor, mumbles that she forgot to eat. She seems totally delirious, muttering nonsense and begging Theo for help. Kanan clings onto Rai, her empty stomach growling for everyone to hear. It turns out Kanan had not eaten for nearly 10 days, claiming she simply forgot about it. Rai looks completely innocent and confused, saying she ate yesterday and sees absolutely no problem. You and I both know what is happening. Theo points his finger, declaring Rai finally learned the joy of eating. It is not just about basic nutrition for her anymore. She has finally learned to experience meals for taste. Rai considers this, admitting he might actually be right. Theo tells them food comes soon, but first, bath time. Cut to the bathroom, where Kanan is happily soaking in the tub. She asks herself if his name was Theo, fully admitting the guy is seriously amazing. She looks around the sparkling clean room, completely baffled by how he managed to fix such a disastrous bathroom. Feeling incredibly relaxed, she admits she never thought she would take a proper bath again. She concludes that if housework had ranks, Theo would easily be S rank. Rai joins her in the water, telling Kanan that Theo can do things she cannot. which is why she respects him. Kanon gets all dramatic and envious, yelling that she wants to meet a great guy like that soon. Rai calmly points out that Kanon has already met him. It is Theo. Kanon gives her a blank stare, asking who she means, before it finally clicks. Rai continues, explaining that Theo treats Kanon exactly as she is, without any bias. And because of that, she is sure Kanon and Theo can become good friends. Kanon stammers, blushing hard as she realizes what Rai is implying about her relationship with Theo. Rai smiles, admitting she usually gets a bit jealous when Theo gets too close. But since Kanon is her friend, she says it is fine. Cute, right? You and I are jumping right in. Kanon instantly snaps, calling Rai totally clueless. Because of their friendship, she absolutely refuses to do something tacky like stealing her friend's guy. Rai just calmly responds, I see. Kanon just stares, completely unable to figure out what is going on inside her friend's head. She realizes Rai is that mysterious kind of girl you can never quite understand, no matter how hard you try. Meanwhile, Theo stands in the kitchen, wondering what he should cook up today. He realizes he totally zoned out cleaning the mansion, and completely forgot to prep any of the food. Knowing that Rai and Kanon are absolutely starving right now, he decides to whip up something incredibly fast. Time to get straight to work. He grabs yesterday's leftover curry and mixes it right into a bowl of rice, piling tons of extra ingredients on top. He covers everything in thick cheese and bakes it. Kanon walks in, completely blown away by the mouth-watering aroma. She is shocked, asking how on earth he managed to make something so fast. Theo smiles, saying it is mostly leftovers. Kanon then notices her clothes are somehow perfectly clean too, calling him totally incredible. Rai chimes in right alongside her, agreeing that Theo is genuinely amazing. Laughing it off, Theo says he simply used the washing machine, then suggests they finally eat. An absolute feast is ready. Kanon stares at her plate, eagerly asking what it is. Theo proudly explains it is a rich doria gratin made directly from the leftover curry. Wasting zero time, Kanon dives right in. She takes just one single bite, and her eyes completely sparkle, raving about how the rich spices and sweet cheese match flawlessly. She suddenly spots the mystery meat and totally freezes. It tastes unreal. Then, Rai casually drops the bomb that it is dragon meat. Now watch this reaction. Kanon goes into pure shock, muttering the word dragon. Then her eyes ignite, declaring she needs to go hunt one immediately because it is so delicious. Sweating nervously, Theo notes that this wild, reckless hype is exactly why he warned against hunting earlier. Flashing a warm smile, Theo tells her if she loves the food that much, she should visit anytime. He promises to always make enough portions. Honestly, cooking for 3 is barely harder than cooking for 2. He admits seeing her eat so joyfully genuinely makes him happy, while Rai gives silent approval in the background. Kanon blushes furiously and suddenly flips the whole script. Blushing, she bravely asks Theo if he wants to visit her place instead. Chaos erupts in the kitchen. Theo nervously explains he has actual work to do right here at the mansion, but a determined Kanon just keeps pushing him. She playfully suggests if it is just housework, he could easily commute from their place instead. Getting totally carried away, she starts calling him her boyfriend, but gets instantly cut off mid-sentence. Rai violently slaps her hand down onto Kanon's shoulder, smiling darkly while claiming she saw a bug. While Rai laughs menacingly behind her, Kanon loudly announces that since their delicious meal is over, it is finally time for the third wheel to leave. Theo awkwardly offers to walk her to the door. Outside, Kanon happily waves goodbye, but running off, her smile completely fades. She thinks about Rai's dark aura, realizing the famous Silver Princess is actually totally serious about Theo. Kanon secretly admits she is feeling a little jealous. Then, the scene jumps to a noisy bar where Alvin is absolutely hammered. We all know a jealous guy like this. He slams his beer, screaming, demanding what Rai sees in that man. His friends frantically try calming him down, wondering where Rai even found someone like that with her crazy, non-stop questing schedule. One guy brings up the massive dragon subjugation from the other day as their likely meeting spot. The wild gossip continues. They discuss rumors about a disgraced former knight who fled duty, but is supposedly strangely amazing at cooking. They laugh, joking about how he won over the great Rai's stomach. Luckily, Cannon, now fully geared up in heavy armor, happens to be nearby and overhears everything, instantly connecting the dots about a knight who cooks. She realizes they are definitely discussing Theo. Stepping in, she commands them to share the details. Internally, she worries about what Ferris will actually do if she hears these crazy rumors. The guys look up, completely startled to be addressed by her. Later, the scene jumps to a clothing store. Rai is holding various flashy outfits up against Theo, checking his look. Theo just stands there, passively letting it happen. Then, it finally dawns on him. A man and a woman shopping for clothes together usually means just one thing. He starts piecing the reality together in his head. It completely clicks. This is totally a date. While Rai hums happily beside him, Theo is absolutely freaking out internally. Rai insists that since these are his clothes, he really needs to participate and choose properly. Theo nervously apologizes, his mind racing, wondering how things ended up like this. Just then, a loud voice cuts right through his wild thoughts, shouting and asking what is wrong with him. Theo checks his sleeve and suddenly realizes his clothes are literally falling apart. He wonders if he ripped it while cleaning earlier. He definitely needs a new outfit. But then his frugal side kicks in, thinking he can just sew it up to make it last a bit longer. That is where we pause. Rai stares with dark realization. Stick with me here. She thinks she underpaid him, and snaps, screaming she is buying him new clothes right now, chanting buy, buy. Meanwhile, a terrified Theo tries waving her down. Cutting outside, Theo steps out, rocking a truly ridiculous disguise. Huge sunglasses and a face mask. Ray gives him a deadpan stare, pointing out that she is hiding from the knights too. So his solo disguise? Completely and utterly pointless. Ignoring all logic, Theo strikes a dramatic pose, proudly claiming that absolutely nobody will recognize him like this. Ray sighs, bluntly telling him she liked his old look better. She adds that dealing with annoying knights is trouble, hinting she will just handle them completely if they show up. Then, she promises to fix this whole messy situation right now. Leaving the shop, Theo suddenly narrates that despite all the huge fuss, his brand new custom clothes feel basically identical to his old everyday outfit. Walking away, Theo casually comments that their entire fantasy setting feels broken wearing these oddly modern clothes, and Ray completely agrees with him. Just then, a cheerful woman in a headscarf spots them in the street, loudly shouting about what an amazing coincidence it is. Theo instantly recognizes her as Antline. Now pay attention to this part. The woman happily tells Ray her timing is absolutely perfect, and hands over a paper bag. Ray opens it, revealing a massive pile of fresh strawberries. Antline brags that they are fresh and delicious, explaining she owes Ray big time. So this gift is the very least she could do. Realizing he has no clue who she is, Theo politely steps forward, introducing himself as Ray's employee. Antline instantly cuts him off, wildly assuming he must be the famous Ray's new husband. She completely gushes, telling the blushing pair to eat together and get along, calling them so cute and adorably innocent. Theo frantically waves his hands, screaming that she has it wrong. Realizing this chaotic lady ignores everything people say, he suddenly remembers the muscular vegetable shopkeeper from before and realizes this is Uncle Bartle's very own wife. It actually makes perfect sense. Antline keeps chatting, explaining that when her husband got terribly sick long ago, Ray saved his life with the legendary phoenix feather, leaving them both forever grateful. Theo's brain completely short-circuits. Wait, isn't a phoenix an S-rank monster? He stares at Ray in pure disbelief, internally screaming that she literally traded a legendary S-rank item for basic fruit. He thinks she is totally insane, but Ray just smiles warmly, saying Bartle always gives her fruit as thanks, and that makes her happy. Before Theo can process this awful trade deal, A familiar voice suddenly interrupts them with a very polite, "Good day." Then his tone turns ice cold, violently snapping at Theo to know his place. It is Alvin, the armored guy from the bar, with his squad. Alvin approaches the duo and smugly asks Ray if she took a little family member out shopping. Ray quickly corrects him, casually explaining she was actually out hunting the Aval monsters. And this shopping trip is just a victory celebration. Alvin nods, noting the Aval ogre isn't a rank threat and tough enemy. But of course, he immediately slips in a brag that it would be an easy task for him personally. He lectures Theo that Aval monsters are vicious, mutated beasts. Then praises Ray for effortlessly taking one down without even breaking a single sweat. Then Alvin turns his full attention straight toward Theo. "You know exactly where this is going." Alvin casually mentions he assumes they are on a date, and then instantly freezes, processing his own stupid words. Stuttering, he tries to recover, reminding them they have an early hunt tomorrow, so they definitely should not relax too much before the big mission. Ray suddenly drops the huge news that she might be away for a while. Theo is stunned. She will be gone tomorrow, while Alvin aggressively demands to know exactly how long she will be away. Ray totally ignores Alvin, focusing entirely on tomorrow's breakfast. She just wants to eat a good meal before flying back out to boost her team's morale. Theo mentions that one night of sleep is totally plenty, but Ray playfully decides to tease him. She loudly asks if he will miss her and suggests sleeping together again tonight. Alvin literally looks like his soul just forcefully left his absolute body. Alvin loses his mind completely. He screams at Theo, furiously demanding how he dares to deceive Lady Ray. Drawing his blade, he yells that he can never forgive him, ordering Theo to become rust on his shining sword. Panicking, Theo sprints away, wondering how things escalated to actual murder. Ray casually steps in to clarify the misunderstanding, calmly stating that Theo is properly working. From a safe distance, Theo frantically agrees, nervously stammering that he is not messing around. Theo screams out that he is just doing housework. Alvin suddenly stops, looking utterly confused as he tries processing this. Theo clarifies that by work, he doesn't mean being a tough sailor, a powerful blacksmith, or a mage. He means daily chores. Alvin denies it, but reality hits hard. "So, what do you and I make of this? Let's dive in." He bursts into tears, realizing Theo made Ray's house look stunning. He desperately begs Ray, insisting he can do laundry, cook, and clean. He pleads with her to rely on him. The loud drama draws in townsfolk, who immediately start gossiping about it. Loud whispers spread through the entire crowd. They seriously question if Ray's legendary garbage mansion is actually clean. Locals swap pure horror stories about that cursed, filthy mansion. One terrified guy even claims he once saw something creepy moving inside the giant trash heap. They fiercely debate how many workers could fix that disaster zone. Hearing just one person did it leaves the entire crowd in complete disbelief. One local loudly jokes that not even a literal god could clean that decay alone. In the foreground, Ray listens to everyone openly roasting how disgusting her old home was. She stands there looking incredibly sulky, deeply offended by their words. Ray honestly admits that the brutal comments from the townsfolk actually hurt her feelings. Theo nervously smiles and tries comforting her. He points out it is clean now, as long as she never makes a huge mess again. Ray fully agrees, but the peace vanishes quickly. Alvin suddenly points an angry finger at Theo. "Now watch closely." He calls Theo a nobody, demanding an absolute epic housekeeping duel. Theo looks completely baffled, but Alvin is dead serious, declaring that after defeating Theo in domestic skills, he will proudly protect Ray's home from now on. Theo screams in total despair, wondering how his life became this madness. A twin-tail girl watches in shock as the scene unfolds. Theo desperately tries calming things down, but notices Alvin is just way too hyped up to listen to any reason. Alvin totally ignores him, shouting his acceptance. He boldly declares this epic duel to be the ultimate true spirit of pure manhood. With burning flames in his eyes, he yells for Ray to witness this, proclaiming he will take Theo's place beside her after winning. Theo immediately shuts that down, stating flatly that it is impossible. Alvin collapses in pure agony, unleashing a soul-crushing scream. He slams fists down, wailing about how unfair this is. He cries out that as her family, he spent way more time with Ray, yet he still cannot become her trusted right-hand man. Staring blankly at the dirt, he loudly wonders what exactly he is lacking compared to Theo. Theo calmly suggests that if Alvin truly wants answers, he should just visit Ray's house and see. Alvin looks confused, but tells Theo to lead the way. Theo quickly checks if bringing a guest is okay, and Ray gives a casual approval. They arrive at the massive mansion shortly. Stepping through the massive door, Alvin instantly freezes and stammers. He completely loses his mind while trying to process this absolutely sparkling, spotless interior before him. You and I feel his shock. He shouts that the place transformed into an actual livable space. He immediately turns to Theo, aggressively demanding to know what kind of ancient, mythical sorcery he used to pull off this insane miracle. Theo simply replies, he cleaned it, nothing more. Alvin refuses to accept that answer, screaming it is total nonsense. He explains the nation previously sent elite janitors here, but the entire operation was aborted because they all caught a very mysterious, crippling illness. He seriously cannot believe Theo single-handedly resolved a massive national failure without using any special techniques. Ray catches that strange illness comment, turning to Theo. Realizing he kept quiet about the danger this whole time, she stares at him with a piercing look, fully knowing he hid the truth. Theo sweats nervously and plays totally dumb. He claims he was just hyper-focused on cleaning, so he never heard about a curse. Still in deep denial, Alvin insists only the entrance hall is clean, completely refusing to admit defeat just yet. Theo calmly invites him to check the other rooms. Alvin walks the house, completely stunned by what he sees. He notes that horrific rooms which previously looked like monster breeding grounds are now sparkling, clean, exactly like a high-end luxury hotel. He stops before the bathroom, physically trembling as he realizes the ultimate tragedy room is actually usable again. Theo casually mentions everyone usually says the exact same thing. Alvin looks ready to crumble, struggling to find any reason to argue. Smiling brightly, Theo generously offers to make delicious food, suggesting they grab something to eat. Internally, he notes that despite making this kind offer, he knows Alvin already ate dinner with his own family. Ray also had a meal right before leaving. Despite them both eating, Theo decides to cook anyway. He gets to work in the pristine kitchen, washing fresh strawberries, precisely chopping them, and whipping fluffy cream. He flips fluffy pancakes in the pan, assembling a perfect dessert. Here's what we waited for. Theo plates the gorgeous strawberry pancakes, inviting them to enjoy. The dessert looks professionally made, stacked high with fruit and flowers. Alvin stares, scoffing that sweet things are only meant for women and children. Alvin takes one single bite and completely loses his mind. Stick with me here. He starts yelling about how the perfect strawberry tartness deepens the delicious sauce. He raves how the whipped cream melts like pure clouds, screaming that the sweetness leaves a totally refreshing aftertaste on his tongue. Ray jokes that everyone gets super chatty eating Theo's food. Theo just laughs, really appreciating the sweet compliment. Alvin loudly declares he has never tasted a dessert this incredibly elegant in any single kingdom or country. Meanwhile, Rai stares at her empty plate in absolute shock, totally regretting that she ate her pancake too fast without savoring every single bite. Theo actually expected her to finish instantly. He casually brings out this giant, massive tower of pancakes he prepared perfectly in advance. Rai loudly cheers, looking incredibly happy as she munches away. Alvin just watches her smile, stares down at his own clean plate, and dramatically slams it onto the table with a super serious look. Alvin sincerely thanks Theo for the amazing meal, loudly announcing that he will be leaving right away. But right before he goes, he firmly tells Theo to step outside with him. Theo follows him out, leaving Ray completely happy with her dessert. Watching them leave, Alvin stands right outside the grand mansion, finally admitting total defeat to Theo in this crazy rivalry. He remembers Ray's bright smile, telling Theo that in all his years serving her, he has absolutely never seen her show such deep, genuine trust before. It really frustrates him, but he totally accepts his loss. He starts saying he cannot be the one supporting Rai, but Theo quickly interrupts him, openly admitting he feels that exact same quiet frustration. Theo explains that while Alvin easily fights alongside her, he simply cannot keep up with her insane strength on the active battlefield. All he can do is wait home for her safe return. But he honestly tells Alvin he is completely fine with doing that. Theo gently continues, explaining that when Rai returns, his one and only goal is making her smile, bringing her in just a tiny bit of happiness. He happily says, "That is enough." Flashing back to when Rai rescued him, he tells Alvin that being her home support is his only way to properly repay her. Hearing this pure devotion, Alvin absolutely crumbles under the heavy weight of his feelings. He realizes he has completely lost, not just as a tough fighter, but as a man, absolute defeat. He thinks back on his journey alongside Ray. "You and I both felt that heartbreak, right?" He suddenly realizes that while they fought as family, he put her on a massive pedestal, fearing and admiring her way too much to ever imagine being casually happy together. He literally screams in agony, realizing he built that wall himself. Theo just stands there awkwardly, watching Alvin have a massive mental breakdown, totally unsure what to do. After Alvin finally pulls it together, Theo warmly invites him back. He tells him to come totally hungry next time so they can feast around the table until they are fully stuffed. Alvin quickly turns away, trying to keep his tough image. He tells Theo not to get cocky. Even though he lost today, he claims Theo has not fully earned his complete trust just yet. But then he stammers awkwardly, admitting that the fantastic food was so amazing, he really wants to eat more soon. He finally calls the chef by his name, Theo. Theo smiles warmly, saying it is an honor. Later, Alvin stands on a rocky cliff, screaming at the sunset. He vows to master his own household skills. Meanwhile, much darker events are unfolding far away. The situation worsens as monster attacks are increasing and becoming incredibly ferocious. Meanwhile, near the mansion, now pay attention here, a mysterious short-haired woman watches from the shadows. Theo might be safe right now, but he is heading straight into massive danger involving dark past grudges. Totally clueless about the looming threat, Theo stays busy smoking meat in the quiet garden. Sadly, a delicious aroma can sometimes attract very unwanted, highly dangerous attention too. Theo eagerly checks his hanging smoked meats, looking super pleased with the amazing results. Whispering a quiet "alright" to himself, Theo wipes the heavy sweat from his brow, being totally satisfied with his amazing smoked meat. He happily remembers a sweet conversation with Ray, recalling how she admitted she actually missed their shared mealtimes lately. She told him if he makes smoked meat to eat during hunts, she would be absolutely thrilled. She admitted that without his amazing care, she normally ends up skipping her meals entirely. Smiling warmly at that memory, Theo heads toward the building. He says okay to himself, completely distracted by the food, when he suddenly spots a shadowy figure standing nearby. He politely asks if they need any help. But the absolute second he turns around and faces this mysterious visitor, he completely freezes. It is the armored, short-haired woman from his dark past. They instantly lock eyes, and Theo lets out a huge gasp, immediately recognizing her face. The woman looks absolutely furious. Confirming he is actually alive, she furiously screams out his real name, Theo. "Now, that sink in," she claims. The official report says Theo used his squad as bait to survive the dragon subjugation before being completely burned away by the raging flames. Absolute madness. She glares at him with pure hatred, totally disgusted that he would actually go so far to fake his own demise. Theo is completely stunned hearing this insane fabrication, stammering that it is simply impossible. Theo instantly realizes this is Captain Bram's setup. He realizes Bram would never tell the truth about him. But this level of lying is just completely unbelievable. Let's jump into this mess. She says she chased some sketchy rumors through town, and wow, is she glad she checked. She glares, completely shocked he would ever dare to target someone like Ray Silverhorn. Theo desperately stammers a denial, but she screams for absolute silence before he can even speak. Refusing to listen, she calls his words pure garbage from an absolute creep, declaring her ears are firmly shut. Theo frantically attempts to clear up this massive misunderstanding, trying to point out that Captain Bram is the real culprit here, but she completely talks over him, claiming his words are just pathetic excuses, exactly like they always were. Looking completely heartbroken, Theo softly calls out the name Phyllis, but that only makes her recoil. Screaming that he is utterly disgusting, Phyllis turns away, stating she has nothing left to say. She coldly mentions that since his case originally belonged under Captain Bram's jurisdiction, Bram will be the one taking serious action now that Theo has finally been found. She storms off, leaving our guy standing alone in the yard, completely stunned. The scene quietly fades to the peaceful sky. Alvin suddenly snaps him out of it, asking what is wrong. He reminds him they only scouted today and will head out tonight. Theo, still entirely shaken from that intense encounter, is super confused and stammers an apology, barely recognizing his friends. Kenan sighs heavily, asking if he forgot, then immediately complains about being hungry. Panicking, Theo practically jumps out of his chair, loudly shouting that he will cook right this second. Pay attention here. They watch his confusing scramble, until he slams a massive bowl down. Alvin and Kenan check out the dish, seeing a tasty veggie stir-fry before digging in. Theo quickly apologizes for the super basic meal due to zero time, but they adore it. Kenan happily praises the crispy veggies and juicy meat, noting that even though it is slightly burnt, she has zero complaints. Alvin completely agrees, calling it the perfect side for rice, wishing everyone could try. Getting his taste back makes eating this incredible food feel like absolute magic. Theo thanks them, looking completely relieved. Ray suddenly speaks, cutting through the praise. She directly asks Theo if something bad happened. He instantly freezes, trying to play dumb, but Ray calmly points out the flavor is totally different. He nervously blames the burnt parts, but Ray shuts him down completely, warning him that he was distracted and must be careful next time. She plainly states the weird taste is not just from the burning. Heavy silence falls over the table as Alvin and Kenan watch them. Theo nervously admits he bumped into an old acquaintance. Alvin looks amazed he even knows people, then quickly scolds Kenan for being too nosy. Kenan ignores him, zeroing in with a sly grin. She declares it was a woman, specifically an ex. You and I know that frantic denial means yes. Kenan laughs, pointing out his obvious panic. He claims he was just feeling nostalgic, but Kenan waves him off, saying she is only joking. Theo turns back to Ray, apologizing for worrying her and insisting he is perfectly fine. Ray accepts this with a simple, understanding nod. He promises to do better. Later, standing outside under the moonlight, he tries convincing himself that everything is completely okay. He figures even Captain Bram wouldn't be bored enough to travel all this way just to hunt him down. Later that peaceful night, the mansion stays completely quiet while everyone else sleeps. But in one room, Theo sits on his bed's edge, wide awake. He stares at the floor, lost in thought, until the handle clicks open. Ray steps quietly into the room. Shocked to see her awake, Theo stammers out a super confused question about why she is visiting. Ray just looks at him calmly, asking if he cannot sleep. Theo quickly tries covering it up, rubbing his neck and claiming he feels drowsy from spacing out for the entire day. Ray completely ignores his weak excuse, handing him a tiny object. He holds it up, realizing it is a teleportation magic stone, asking what this means. Sitting close beside him, Ray softly explains that if danger strikes, he just needs to crush the stone. She promises to fly to him instantly, no matter where he is. Her expression softens beautifully. She admits she has no clue about his old friend, but gently reminds him that she will always be on his side. Without another word, Ray leans in to hug him. Theo warmly accepts the comfort, closing his eyes while thanking her. Mentally, he completely admits defeat. He knew it. He absolutely cannot beat her insane intuition. Ray quietly leaves, and Theo finally settles back into bed. So what do you and I make of this? He falls asleep holding that stone. But trust me, this peaceful moonlight vibe will not last long. Stick with me. A massive crash echoes, jolting Theo awake in a complete panic. Pure chaos erupts the second Captain Bram storms inside. He screams about a report claiming the mansion is hiding a fugitive, making it clear they are tearing the place apart right now. Ordering his squad to smash absolutely everything, he yells, they need to find this target. Theo freezes, recognizing that obnoxious voice in a split second. Horrified, he rushes straight out and confronts Bram, demanding to know what is happening. Captain Bram looks completely manic, screaming that he has been waiting to see Theo. He angrily demands to know how he managed to survive that impossible situation. He does admit the kid has insane luck, though. Chuckling, Bram mocks him, calling Theo a genius and his favorite little toy that finally returned home. Bram laughs out loud, declaring he is actually the luckiest guy around. Theo is still super groggy and confused, but Bram gives him zero breathing room, offering a twisted choice. Get smashed to pieces and then locked up, or get locked up and then smashed to pieces. Watch closely as Bram rambles. Theo remembers the special item Rai gave him, recalling her specific rule to crush it for backup. Realizing he holds the winning card, Theo raises the stone, telling the captain he talks way too much. Bram instantly gets physical, grabbing Theo roughly, mocking his rebellious glare, and sarcastically crying about his broken heart. He quickly spots Theo clenching his fist, demanding to see what is hidden. When Theo refuses to budge, Bram viciously squeezes his fingers together, teasing him not to act so cold and keep fun secrets from them. Amidst the intense struggle, the magic stone slips from his grip, clattering right down. Holding Theo back, Bram glances down at the strange object, instantly recognizing it as teleportation gear. He totally scoffs, whining about how high-rank adventurers live such pampered lives with shiny toys like that, muttering it makes him incredibly furious. Bram brutally stomps his heavy boot, smashing the stone into fine dust, asking what Theo honestly thought would happen. Taunting him, he asks if Theo even understands the magic, explaining that the one breaking it has to perfectly visualize the person they are calling. Since he crushed it himself, Bram flashes a wicked grin, telling Theo it is a real shame his guardian angel is not showing up today. With zero hope left, Bram officially declares the suspect fully in custody. One of his loyal soldiers starts rattling off totally fake criminal charges: desertion during active combat, high treason, and even bringing up that entirely fake assault charge from 4 years back. Leaning right in, Bram taunts him about his growing record, hinting he might pull a few strings just to keep Theo working as a servant. Suddenly, random soldier interrupts, nervously reminding the arrogant captain about his other task. Let's pause for a second. You saw that too, right? Bram suddenly remembers his real plan, pulls out a sketchy bag of powder, and quietly stashes it right inside a drawer. He instantly starts acting, screaming at the top of his lungs about finding contraband. Gloating hard, he says the news will expose an S-rank adventurer throwing a wild party, calling it massive. Theo frantically stammers that this is insane because he literally just watched them plant it. But Bram just keeps shouting about this grave crisis. Bram laughs like an absolute maniac, telling Theo he is still incredibly foolish. He proudly declares this fake setup will force those arrogant adventurers into submission, calling it Rai's ultimate punishment for getting way too full of herself. Mocking Theo endlessly, he asks who would ever dare to testify for them. Theo spirals into deep guilt, thinking Rai was crazy to rescue a jinx like him. Realizing his friends are suffering entirely because he is around. Feeling absolutely desperate to protect his friends, Theo heavily drops down, pressing his forehead against the floor. He admits he was wrong, begging the captain to please leave Rai completely alone. But Bram totally ignores the kid's heartfelt apology. Turning to his loyal troops, he announces the final phase. ordering them to completely destroy every single thing in sight. Looking up in sheer horror, Theo screams for them to stop, offering himself instead. Bram just grabs his hair, violently yanking the poor kid's head backwards. He coldly asks if Theo is completely misunderstanding things. Bram sneers that a pathetic loser like Theo is simply not worth all this massive effort. He loudly reveals this is his golden ticket to ruin the adventurers he always despised. Laughing like crazy, he makes it obvious nobody is walking away from this trap safely. Meanwhile, miles away, gigantic dragon crashes down into the dirt, completely defeated. Rai stands right beside the fallen monster, looking totally unbothered. The huge crowd of onlookers goes absolutely wild over the epic victory. Kanon throws her hands up, shouting happily that they finally won. Celebrating their massive success, Alvin turns around, giving Rai all the credit for the amazing win. Rai just quietly nods and simply says okay. But her focus suddenly shifts elsewhere. Without any warning, she blasts straight into the sky with explosive speed. Kanon and Alvin just stare. Trust me, you and I definitely want to see what happens next. Alright, stick with me here. Back at the dragon site, Rai suddenly launches herself skyward, shouting that the team can handle the cleanup themselves. Kanon chases right after her, yelling for her to wait up. Totally confused, Kanon asks what is happening while Alvin wonders if Rai had some weird premonition. As she rushes off, Rai finally realizes the truth. The teleportation stone she gave Theo just shattered without ever being activated. She knows this means immediate danger and she races to save him. Meanwhile, Theo is locked inside a dark cell, taking endless abuse from Captain Bram's squad. Soldiers literally dump buckets of gross filth into his cell, screaming right through the bars. They ask how he dares to return after using his friends as decoys, demanding to know why he did not have the decency to just vanish forever. They keep insulting him, calling him a massive traitor and a total disgrace to the knighthood. As he sits there quietly, Captain Bram struts right into the dungeon, casually greeting Theo. Seeing the awful mess the soldiers made, Bram smirks and jokes that Theo seems to be everyone's favorite. He unlocks the dirty cell and orders Theo to follow. As Theo is led away, the guards snicker in the background, whispering excitedly if this means Theo is finally done for. As Theo walks down the dark corridor, a bucket comes flying, smacking him right in the head. The soldiers burst out laughing, mocking him by asking if his final drink tastes delicious, joking that it is a serious luxury for a traitor. Bram watches the spectacle and sneers, calling Theo quite the celebrity. Phyllis stands nearby, adding that she is honestly so honored to see this. Bram turns his attention back to Theo to continue the torment. Suddenly, Bram kicks Theo's legs straight out from under him. Theo hits the ground with a painful grunt. Bram looms over him, mockingly asking why he is sleeping, and screaming at him to get the hell up. Here is where it gets real. With crazed eyes, Bram announces it is finally judgment time. Out in the forest, Ray's party sprints to catch up. Kanon complains that she cannot believe this is happening. Alvin explains how Rai set up a secondary magic stone to send alerts if the teleportation stone failed, noting how wildly overprotective that strategy really is. Kanon totally admits it came in handy. Ahead of them, Rai runs with absolute focus, her only thought being whether Theo is okay. Rai and her team finally arrive at the mansion where Theo was staying, only to find the whole place totally trashed. Books and furniture are scattered absolutely everywhere. Rai quickly scans the room, stating she cannot feel Theo's presence at all. Kanon looks around at the wreckage and asks, "What on earth happened right here?" From the dark shadows, a creepy voice mocks them, laughing that it took long enough. Two heavy knights step forward with smug grins, welcoming the adventurer and noting they have been patiently waiting. Kanon immediately recognizes their armor, yelling in shock to ask why knights are here. Rai does not care about their fancy rank. She gets straight into their faces and demands to know Theo's exact location. One knight puts his hand up to shove them back, warning them never to touch him. As Kanon tries to ask what they are even doing, the knight aggressively yells at her to shut up and calls Rai a criminal. Then, Those knights dropped the bomb. You and I did not expect this. They claim massive narcotics were discovered in Ray's home, taking her into custody. Kanon is totally baffled, screaming Ray would never, ever use those drugs. Alvin tries handling this diplomatically, suggesting there must be a huge mistake, and calmly asking them to double-check the facts. But the knight instantly cuts him off, aggressively, telling him to shut up. He starts mocking them, saying he is so sick of hearing excuses from Theo's friends. He even sneers, asking if Alvin and Kanon are high. His partner warns them not to get cocky, telling Ray Silver to just shut up and surrender. Honestly, Ray has heard enough. She simply swings her bare arm through empty air. The knights and her own teammates watch in absolute shock as the invisible force of her swing completely obliterates the stone wall right near his terrified head. As the dusty debris settles, Ray glares at the terrified soldier, calling him completely worthless. Ray leans in real close, her face totally twisted in pure fury, screaming for Theo's exact location right this very second. The other knight, violently trembling, warns her to wait, crying that attacking them means making a huge enemy of the entire Knight Order. Kanon tries to step in and de-escalate the crazy situation, but the knight on the ground is absolutely broken. He screams in pure terror, promising to confess everything if she just spares his life. After extracting that information, Rai announces she knows exactly where Theo is. Kanon panics, realizing Ray is about to bolt, asking if she plans to go totally alone. Rai simply states she is going. Alvin steps directly in her path, firmly blocking the way and begging her to please listen to reason for 1 second. Ray fixes him with a truly terrifying glare, ordering him to move. Instead, Alvin steps up with intense determination, shouting that he is joining the rescue. Rai looks confused, but Alvin doubles down to repay his debt. You and I absolutely need to see what happens. Stick with me. We are jumping right into Kanon's bold choice. She shoots a cheerful smile at Ray, reminding the S-rank adventurer she isn't the only one who cares about Theo. Ray just stares at them both. Kanon asks if she is fine with this, cheerfully pointing out that this is exactly what a real family is meant to do. A bright smile crosses Ray's face. She drops a simple nope, completely dismissing any hesitation, and immediately says, "Let us go." With the team officially united, Kanon happily declares it is settled. The three of them will absolutely save him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts directly to Theo. The heavy rope binding him gets sliced apart, and a sharp sword is tossed into the ground before him. Theo sits there, looking totally terrified and confused. Standing right over him, Captain Bram grins with a twisted expression, loudly bragging about his own mercy. He sternly warns Theo this is his final chance. Bram throws his arms wide and loudly announces the start of an intense trial by combat. The spectators, mostly Bram's loyal soldiers, instantly start chanting for battle, screaming for Theo to fall and demanding a wild duel. Bram smirks at the wild chaos he is orchestrating, looking back at Theo and encouraging the madness. "This is exactly how it should be," he says, calling out to Ferris nearby. She looks completely indifferent, flatly telling the captain she already said he could do as he pleases, and there was absolutely no need to call her over for this. As Theo stares at her in pure shock, Bram leans in close to his ear, totally mocking the dramatic situation. He cynically comments on how Ferris always acts like this, casually asking Theo if it does not feel incredibly lonely. Bram continues his twisted mind games, saying it is very important that the three of them now pay attention. This is where it gets wild. He grins maniacally, calling it the ultimate climax. They all must see. He completely forces Theo into an impossible corner, telling him to choose: pick up the sword and fight, or simply stay down and be utterly defeated. Theo snaps, his expression shifting from pure fear to fierce determination. Gripping the sword, he warns Bram not to mess with him. He shouts he will never let himself be finished off, loudly declaring he will fight and win. He screams that he will not be Bram's little puppet forever, and fiercely calls out the captain's name. He swears he is going to make it through alive so he can safely return to Ray's side. Bram just watches this sudden heroic burst of defiance with a bored look. He asks what is up with him, lazily complaining that getting all fired up is a turnoff. In the background, Ferris coldly replies that she wouldn't know. Bram decides he has had enough, his face twisting into a dark scowl. Claiming he always hated that hot-blooded attitude, he fiercely charges right in for an attack. Their blades clash intensely, sparks flying wild between them. Bram grunts with effort, complaining that this is so incredibly annoying coming from just a mere guy like Theo. He furiously screams at Theo to just hurry up and lose, aggressively repeating it over and over again. Theo desperately struggles to hold his ground against the captain's overwhelming strength, gritting his teeth and insisting he will not lose. Bram swings his heavy sword down hard, muttering for Theo to fall. But in the explosive clash, a sword goes flying high into the air. Seeing a massive opening, Theo lunges forward, shouting that he has him beat. Bram looks genuinely surprised, but only for a quick split second. Suddenly, Theo is blasted backward with tremendous rough force, smashing incredibly hard into the solid brick wall behind him. Bram casually stands there unharmed, wiping sweat from his brow. He admits that was way too close, claiming he almost accidentally got finished right back there. As Theo slumps weakly against the wall, confused and asking why, Bram sarcastically apologizes for getting the poor guy's hopes up. "You and I both knew this," he mocks Theo, saying he never stood a chance. Bram reveals the dirty trick, a glowing magical chain wrapped across Theo's chest that the captain is fully controlling, pointing out the chain secretly wound around Theo. He brags about keeping this wild ace up his sleeve, mocking him with a fake compliment. He notes Theo's instincts are great, and true talent never rots. But then, his smug expression darkens completely. He snarls that this is annoying him. Focusing deeply on Theo's defiant glare, Bram spits that what is most annoying of all are those stubborn eyes. It is absolutely infuriating him. Bram is completely losing his mind now, aggressively raining heavy blows on Theo. He furiously screams about how much he despises those defiant eyes and that annoying light, still bravely shining in the back of them, yelling at Theo not to dare find joy in something simple like cooking. He calls him absolute trash. He shouts that Theo should have just despaired and faded away already. Ferris watches the ruthless beatdown. She desperately pleads for the cruel captain to stop, but Bram fully ignores her, repeatedly screaming for Theo to fall. Ferris looks on in pure horror, realizing Theo might actually be destroyed. Bram leans in close to Ferris, darkly whispering that she is going to eliminate them anyway, so there is absolutely no problem with this. Clearly distressed, Ferris asks why. She nervously stammers that as a noble knight, this kind of brutal conduct is entirely wrong, but she cannot seem to stand up to him. Crazy, right? Bram openly mocks her, totally laughing at the knight idea. He asks if she is seriously getting so worked up over chivalry these days. "Stick with me here." He turns to Theo, joking about how crazy it is that Ferris takes everything so seriously. Bram keeps on explaining. He says serious people are super easy to hypnotize. For Ferris, it was totally true. Theo, battered and bruised, catches that specific word. Then, Bram drops the big truth. That night, he used magic on Ferris, making her hallucinate that Theo was actually attacking her. With an evil grin, he admits he wanted to sleep with the beauty too. Horrified, Theo begs to know why he would do something so unbelievably cruel. Bram acts confused for a second. Then his face goes completely dark. There is only one reason. Bram explains it is just a little something to kill time. Pure entertainment. He starts ranting about the knight's order, the constant stress, living under strict rules of chivalry, knowing full well his life could end tomorrow. He claims that without picking a target to blow off steam, he feels like he is suffocating. Looking down with a twisted smile, he tells Theo that for bullying, a perfect model student like him is the absolute best choice. Bram yanks the glowing chain, hard to choke him out, but Theo grabs the metal links with his bare hands, totally refusing to break. Struggling hard against the magical force, he stammers for a second, but then finally finds his voice. He tells Bram he is no toy, proudly declaring his name is Theo. Then, with every single ounce of spirit left, he screams that he is Ray's proud house husband. Now watch this. A voice complains about the hassle, and boom. The solid brick wall completely explodes inward, sending crazy debris flying everywhere. Kanon steps right through the massive hole she just made, looking totally and completely unbothered. She casually apologizes, explaining that finding the entrance was just a huge hassle. Seeing his allies through the thick dust, Theo immediately shouts out Kanon's name in pure relief. Bram instantly goes into full panic mode. He screams about intruders, ordering his totally frozen men to surround them right now. Stepping right through the wreckage, an unimpressed Kanon actually tells the soldiers she feels incredibly sorry for them. Alvin steps up right beside her, totally agreeing with that statement. Ray Silverhorn makes her epic entrance, striding forward with such insane force. Soldiers are literally sent flying through the air. She announces their little princess is in a super bad mood today. Downed troops groan in agony, while the rest absolutely freak out, finally realizing exactly who she is. One soldier questions why an S-rank adventurer is even here, while Kanon just watches with a big smile as Ray finally arrives. Ray pulls Theo into a super tight embrace, softly telling him that she has finally come for him. Battered and exhausted, Theo leans into her shoulder, simply thanking her. Meanwhile, inside the nearby castle, a figure at a desk hears the commotion, complaining that everyone is just way too noisy. Ray stands super protective and close to Theo. In that very moment, reconfirming the incredibly strong bond they share together. You and I both knew this. Ray and Theo settle down, while Bram completely loses his mind. He screams at his men to stop staring. Surround the intruders right now so they absolutely cannot escape. The soldiers shout back in agreement, rallying up their courage. Preparing to charge, Bram shrieks not to let the intruders leave alive. But Ray cuts through the noise with an absolutely terrifying glare. She coldly tells them they are being way too loud. Instantly, the sheer, crushing pressure of her aura hits them hard. Bram lets out a pathetic squeak of terror. The soldiers collapse to their knees, totally convinced it is the end for them. Bram tries yelling at his men to pull it together, but honestly, he is shaking just as badly as they are. Captain Bram screams his head off, listing off charges of trespassing, assault, and totally obstructing an officer. He yells, asking if they think they can just walk away, but Theo and Ray, completely ignoring him. Theo thanks Ray, and she gently assures him they will be home soon. Suddenly, Theo notices something. He asks Ray if she is okay, pointing out what looks like a pretty terrible injury on her. Ray casually dismisses it, saying it is not as bad as it looks. In the background, Bram's face is twitching uncontrollably. Realizing he is being totally and completely disregarded, Bram finally snaps. Screaming at the top of his lungs, he demands they do not dare ignore him. The crazy volume startles Theo, while Ray just coldly narrows her eyes. Ray casually swats Bram aside. She launches him backward with such insane force. He crashes completely upside down right into a pile of wooden crates. The soldiers just stand there, frozen in stunned silence. Lowering her hand, Ray calmly comments, "That should keep things quiet for a little while." Whispering in pure terror, the soldiers call her an absolute monster for blowing their captain back that far with complete ease. Total chaos breaks out among the troops, until a female knight bravely steps forward. "So what do you and I make of this?" Yelling at everyone to calm down, she admits fighting Ray Silverhorn is impossible, but orders them to capture the other intruders. She screams that letting them escape is a massive disgrace, and simply cannot happen under her watch. The soldiers hype each other up, but Kanon steps in. "Stick with me here." She looks Aqua right in the eye, calling out her absolute nerve. Kanon smirks, casually reminding everyone that she is literally an S-rank adventurer too. Boom! She unleashes a massive wave of fire magic, sending a terrifying blaze forward. The soldiers instantly recoil from the insane heat, recognizing her as the flame demon. Canon casually asks if she is really that easy to ignore just because she lacks the typical mage vibe. Alvin just watches this display looking exhausted, while the panicking soldiers finally realize she is completely unbeatable too. Panicking, they scream to aim for the guy instead. Alvin, watching from the sidelines, Theo gives a slight, wry smile, noting Canon is absolutely the powerhouse type. Alvin steps right into the fray, slicing through enemy lines with perfect precision. He casually introduces himself as an A-rank adventurer, coldly warning them that he will not lose to basic foot soldiers like them. Captain Bram is absolutely losing his mind watching his men fail. He screams at the adventurers to back off. Furious, they are treating his serious battlefield like a literal playground. Desperate to turn the tide, he barks heavy orders at his squad, demanding they destroy all for intruders and prove the true grit of the Royal Knights. When the fight pauses, Canon and Alvin admit these enemy soldiers actually have serious guts for lasting this long, but Rai has her intense gaze locked on one single target. She walks right past Theo, looking straight at Bram, the exact guy who hurt him. Watch this part closely. Just pushing him earlier gave her absolutely zero satisfaction. Drawing her blade, she glares right at the captain, declaring she will never, ever forgive him. Rai swears this on her own soul with a completely intense stare. Sweating but trying to act tough, Bram just mocks her super cheesy line. He mutters quietly that despite everything falling apart, he is totally still going to win this whole thing in the end. With an absolutely crazed, wild look in his eyes, Bram screams at the top of his lungs and recklessly launches his entire body straight at Rai, screaming loudly that bullying is absolutely no fun if the victim never fights back. In a total blur, Rai completely intercepts his attack. She calmly explains that she just severed his tendons to keep things nice and quiet. Bram slams the ground hard, realizing in pure panic that his legs are useless and he cannot rise. His soldiers totally freak out, demanding to know what she did to their captain, screaming that she will not get away with this. Rai just stands over the broken captain, lecturing him coldly. She explains how adventurers usually live by their own souls, instead of basic common law. Bram is sweating bullets, totally confused, begging to know what she means. Instantly, Rai tells the foolish guy he simply does not understand. I know what you are thinking, living by different rules. She would feel zero guilt taking his head right here and now. However, she fully acknowledges that Bram is a man who belongs to the legal world. Because of that, she decides to judge him strictly by his laws, not hers. Meanwhile, over on the sidelines, Canon easily handles his squad. She offers them one simple deal: come clean about what Bram did to Theo, and she will let them go. One guy tries acting tough, scoffing that he would never sell out his friends. Canon is totally unimpressed. She violently grabs his collar and sparks a massive flame right in her hand, asking if he still wants to show off those brave guts. She threatens to roast him bit by bit as a special favor. The guy's fake bravery instantly vanishes, leaving him shrieking in absolute terror. The scary intimidation works flawlessly. He spills everything immediately, admitting it is exactly what Canon thought. He admits that 4 years ago, Theo never attacked Felis at all. It was actually Captain Bram. He cries that Bram set the whole trap just to ruin Theo. His squad mates scream at him to shut up, but the man is completely broken now. He says it does not matter anymore because Captain Bram is finished. Canon gracefully thanks him for the testimony. The remaining guys finally realize this opponent is way too powerful. Canon looks at the shaking group, asking if anyone else wants to back up that story. She adds a super menacing, by the way, just to keep them totally terrified. Canon casually points out that the giant wall of fire around them has been closing in for a while now. She smirks, asking if they noticed it getting a little warm. With one single snap of her fingers, the heavy pressure completely breaks their spirits. Knowing they are beaten, they drop their spears and surrender completely. With the whole squad shattered, another guard steps up to confirm the wild truth. He clearly states Bram was the one who attacked Felis. Bram angrily screams, calling them traitors, but the soldier ignores him. He admits he has been totally sick of Bram's awful tyranny and violence for a long time. And trust me, we get every crime. Bram ordered them to completely silence Theo, used him as dragon bait to escape, blamed their friends passing away on Theo, and arrogantly stole all the final glory himself. Alright, stick with me. Bram curses as his reputation shatters. But suddenly, voices scream out for Ferris, making him absolutely freeze in shock. Even totally defeated and on the ground, Captain Bram keeps screaming wild orders. He furiously yells at Ferris, insulting her for just standing around. He aggressively reminds her she is the captain, loudly demanding she do her actual job. While Bram screams to take everyone out, Ferris just stands there, totally shaking, stammering incoherently as the intense pressure peaks. Ferris desperately tries to snap out of it. She announces herself as Ferris Ingrass, bracing her nerves. She boldly declares that as a knight and First Order captain, she has to fight. Screaming an epic war cry, she charges forward, shouting she will strike them down. But boom, the fight is over in a split second. Aqua, the dark-haired knight, effortlessly disarms Ferris, pinning her straight to the ground and twisting her arm backward. With Ferris completely trapped, Aqua stares down, freezing cold. Realizing Ferris was the one who cornered Theo back then, Aqua absolutely does not hold back. She intensely demands to know if Ferris actually realized the hidden truth. She asks how, after years watching Bram and Theo, Ferris never had a single doubt. You and I both see it. Aqua accuses her of pretending to be blind, blaming Theo simply because it was the easy way out. Absolutely brutal. Theo stands nearby, listening to this fierce interrogation, completely stunned. Meanwhile, Ferris just breaks down, sobbing heavily and lying face first right in the dirt. She sobs heavily, telling Aqua to just finish her off right there. She keeps apologizing over and over again, while Ferris had tried to be a totally emotionless doll just to survive. Her heavy heart is now bursting open like a completely broken dam. Theo watches perfectly silently as she keeps crying and apologizing. Seeing her shattered like this, Theo feels super conflicted, wondering what he could have possibly done for her back then in that incredibly tough spot. But the emotional moment shatters when Captain Bram suddenly claws the ground, loudly scoffing, "This is boring." Despite his heavy injuries, Bram furiously yells out, telling them not to wrap things up neatly because nobody wants to hear a cheap sob story. Alvin looks down and sighs, telling the group that Bram has a massive mouth. Even beaten straight into the dirt, he is still fiercely snarling out big threats. He wildly glares up at Cannon, aggressively threatening to rip her tongue straight out of her mouth. Cannon isn't fazed one bit. She bends over and completely taunts him, daring him to try, though she jokingly adds she would be totally finished if he actually did. She openly scoffs at him, making Bram even angrier. He wildly screams that they are all officially wanted men now. Cannon just laughs and says, then she will simply have to crush the Knight Commander. Alvin watches her crazy antics and sighs again, leering her mouth literally never stops moving. He expresses total disbelief a guy like Bram is actually a knight captain. Suddenly, a totally new voice cuts right through the conversation, agreeing with them. The mysterious voice notes it really is annoying, but technically she is a captain of the knights too. Now, you and I need to watch closely. They instantly freeze up. Before they react, a wild blur slams right into the group. Cannon takes a devastating hit, getting sent flying straight backward with a super loud impact. Cannon skids to a sudden halt, calling out to Alvin and warning him this attacker is seriously strong. Alvin grimly observes the newcomer, quickly realizing they are dealing with the actual First Order captain. Soldiers in the background start cheering wildly, recognizing their true leader, Captain Yue. Yue stands perfectly poised and elegant. Smoothing her dress, she casually says she is flattered by the reception. Yue does not waste a single second. She immediately dashes behind Rei, swinging her sword in a lethal arc. Rei effortlessly blocks the strike from behind without even turning around, metal clashing loudly. Rei calmly remarks that it is pretty cruel of her to attack from behind like that. Yua just huffs a little laugh as they both leap back to create some serious distance. Rei faces her opponent, lowering her sword slightly as she finally acknowledges this is where Yua was all along. Yui looks back with a perfectly calm smile, noting that as usual, Rei seems to have zero interest in other people, which makes her quite sad. Her eyes sharpen as she mentions she always heard the wild rumors about Rei. The casual talk ends right there. Yui and Rei fiercely lunge at each other, swords locking with epic sparks. They stare each other down intensely from across their blades. The S-rank adventurer and the knight captain are now locked in a pure stalemate. Rei and Yui fight a high-speed duel, weapons clashing so violently. Yui thrusts her rapier with insane precision, completely forcing Rei to stay purely on the defensive. The attacks come in a wild blur. Rei barely manages to deflect the strikes as she gets pushed backward. Alvin intensely watches the exchange, with sweat running down his face. Noting in his head, Yui is seriously strong. Yui finally steps back, sighing. The fight feels totally endless. So what do you and I make of this? She lowers her weapons, casually asking Rei to make a deal. Alright, stick with me. Rei freezes, and Yui pushes back hard, confirming she is completely serious. Yui aims her sword straight at Rei, demanding her terms. Rei Silverhorn must instantly surrender her entire adventurer career right here, right now. If Rei just agrees, Yui promises to completely ignore the other three and let everyone walk away, totally unharmed. The whole crew instantly freaks out, loudly demanding to know why Rei has to take the blame. Yui just smirks, chillingly, noting that it's completely normal for the leader to take the hit. Alvin totally grits his teeth, while Kanon absolutely loses it. She furiously screams at Yui to back off. So sick of sitting quietly and listening to this complete nonsense. Kanon yells that Yui is being wildly unfair, especially since her own subordinate started this entire chaotic mess. Yui calmly shrugs that off as the spark, but she casually claims she doesn't want any massive drama either. But then, she slowly side-eyes the massive, gaping hole Kanon blasted in the wall. She smirks, saying she simply cannot ignore that level of destruction, mocking them about who would ever do something so incredibly wild. Yui pushes her massive advantage, asking what their next move is. Now watch closely, she suggests. Losing just one single adventure license is a small price to pay. With Bram totally crushed on the floor, she points out someone absolutely must take the blame for things getting this wild. She shoots Theo a heavy look, adding, "This counts, even if they just wanted to protect someone deeply important." Rei finally makes her big choice. She stares Yui down, demanding a solid vow. If she walks away, Yui must promise to never lay a single finger on Theo. Yui smiles and fully agrees, happily stating that the knight he once was is officially erased from the Order's records, strongly implying the Theo standing right there is legally just a normal civilian. Kanon massively panics, screaming for Rei to reject this terrible deal. But Rei just glances back at her friends with a warm smile, telling everyone to pack up and escape together. Alvin desperately shouts her name, but Rei simply closes her eyes and accepts the heavy terms, quietly whispering, "All right." Then Rei pulls the most insane U-turn ever. She looks Yui right in the eye, apologizes, and bluntly states that quitting is actually completely impossible. The entire group, Alvin, Theo, and Kanon, just stands there with their jaws completely dropped, totally stunned by the whiplash. Yui is totally thrown off too, sweating nervously and stammering as she asks if Rei actually gets it. Rei casually confirms she understands, but she just refuses to do what Yui wants. Yui scrambles to understand this crazy logic, demanding how Rei plans to take the blame for this mess without quitting. Rei bluntly replies, "They just won't take responsibility." Yui asks if she's cool with getting arrested, and Rei awkwardly admits that might be slightly tough. Kanon completely panics about Theo's safety, but Rei quickly reminds her, Yui already legally confirmed his knight persona is entirely gone. "I know what you are thinking." Yui is totally baffled too, asking if Rei seriously expects to face zero consequences and just stroll back home. Ray cheerfully smiles and says nope. Realizing she cannot win this, Yui completely sighs. She dramatically admits defeat, saying she basically has zero choice but to let it slide today. She turns to Ray, noting she has always been incredibly stubborn like that, suddenly addressing her as Ray Wano-sama. Theo chuckles nervously until his brain fully processes that title. He instantly freezes in terror, loudly yelling, Wano-sama, in absolute shock after realizing they are sisters. Yui quickly realizes she never actually introduced herself properly. She proudly announces she is Yui Silverhorn, Ray's biological sister. Theo finally understands why this knight captain is so overpowered. It completely runs in their family. Yui tells Ray she really should visit their family estate sometimes because their proud father desperately wants to see her. But then her warm expression shifts back to scary, serious, finally preparing to handle the actual major problem. Suddenly, Alvin spots something totally pathetic dragging itself across the floor. It is Bram, the corrupt captain. Screams, demanding if she will really drop this without consequences, calling it a massive disgrace to the Royal Knights. Yui totally agrees with him, saying, true. Bram foolishly thinks he is safe, excitedly demanding she punish Ray. Yui suddenly shoots him a terrifyingly dark glare, asking what exactly he is wildly misunderstanding. She confirms there will absolutely be consequences, but clarifies she is solely talking about him. Bram's face goes totally blank with sheer confusion. Yui towers over the terrified captain, glaring down at him with absolute disgust. She harshly lectures him, declaring he should have hidden his shady schemes better. And this is exactly what happens when he acts way above his rank. She brutally lists his failures, getting his shady misdeeds totally exposed and letting the fort get raided, calling it a colossal blunder. So what do you and I take from all this? His massive incompetence forced the elite commander out personally. Stick with me, because you and I are about to watch some epic karma unfold. She asks if he feels powerful, warning he will deeply regret wasting her time as Bram pathetically crawls and begs. Yui is completely unbothered by his dramatic act. She quickly snaps back, angrily questioning if that is a real captain's answer. She sharply scolds him for totally lacking responsibility and honestly only caring about himself. But then, with a completely straight face, she casually admits she totally lacks any sense of responsibility, too. She cheerfully explains that her father simply forced her to take this job, so she really does not care about anything else whatsoever. Theo quietly watches this wildly chaotic interaction unfold, thinking she must be exhausting to handle, feeling slightly bad for the crawling guy. Yui then happily shifts her full attention right to Theo. She casually asks him exactly what kind of brutal punishment he desires for Bram. Seeing a tiny chance, Bram instantly drops down, groveling to Theo, loudly begging for absolute forgiveness now. He desperately tries manipulating things, suggesting they just forget this entire ugly mess and happily head home together like friends. Theo glares down at the pathetic man with pure ice in his eyes, coldly declaring he will absolutely never forgive his actions. Bram's whole attitude flips a complete 180 after getting rejected. He furiously screams at Theo, calling him garbage, and angrily warning him not to mock his kindness. Yui instantly steps in, telling Bram to shut up as she suddenly dumps mystery liquid over him. Bram totally panics, wildly thrashing around and screaming that she is aggressively suffocating him. Now watch closely here. He suddenly pauses, instantly realizing the mysterious liquid has completely healed his injuries. He wildly celebrates, happily laughing that he is cured. Smiling huge at Yui, he boldly claims he secretly knew she genuinely cared about her own team. Yui immediately draws her massive blade, aiming it right at him, calmly warning that one more step means she will strike him down. Kanan intensely watches this madness, bluntly telling Bram he is absolute, total scum. Yui casually wonders if ending him is okay, then quickly drops a massive bombshell, announcing that Bram is now going to become a lifelong criminal slave. She happily explains they literally only healed him so his body could handle endless hard labor. Bram's face goes entirely blank processing this horror. Theo just warmly smiles, telling him to work incredibly hard forever. Bram completely shatters, loudly screaming and frantically begging to avoid this dark fate. Yui utterly ignores him, calling her decision final. Nearby, Rai asks Theo what this extreme slavery means. Theo answers, it is punishment for sins worse than passing away. He describes an absolute nightmare where the prisoner does extreme physical labor endlessly to slowly pay off their incredibly massive crimes. The craziest part is that even if they physically collapse, glowing magic forcefully heals their bodies just to keep them working non-stop until every single debt is cleared. Yui cheerfully waves her hand goodbye, telling him work hard. Can you imagine? We both know that is ultimate karma. As Bram gets engulfed in magic, finally ending his absolute chaos forever. Right there, he lets out one terrifying final scream as glowing magic forcefully swallows him completely, dragging him to endless labor. Theo watches him vanish with cold, piercing eyes. He firmly believes that even if Bram suffered 3 whole times over, it still would not be enough payback for his awful past sins. The entire crew stays perfectly silent as that villain vanishes. With everything finally resolved, adrenaline drops, leaving Theo totally exhausted and incredibly drained. Rai walks over, offering a gentle smile, and warmly telling him to look forward. She extends her hand, welcoming him back to their cozy home together. He gratefully accepts, and they confidently stroll off. He says thanks, but Rai playfully rejects it with a nope, wrapping her arm securely around his neck like best friends. Right behind them, someone releases a massively heavy, annoyed sigh at this. Cannon and Alvin watch them leave. Cannon jokes that those two are basically already flirting, totally forgetting that anyone else even exists in their own little world. Alvin agrees, finding it completely unrewarding. Hearing this, Theo frantically turns back, loudly shouting that it is a huge misunderstanding and he is grateful. Cannon hilariously waves his explanation away. But then, as Theo turns around, someone on the hard ground catches his eye. Ferris. She is bowing deeply, intensely, hitting her head against the stones while screaming endless, frantic apologies over again. Cannon stares at her with pure annoyance, calling the woman highly stubborn. While Alvin loudly offers to go scold her right now, Theo simply tells them to ignore it. Cannon calls him soft, but he instantly corrects her, clarifying this is definitely not about mercy. He is walking away simply because he literally cannot help her anymore. Walking past the crying woman, Theo mutters that salvation is just fake nonsense in the end. He firmly believes that people must step up and save their own lives. The whole group confidently exits through a massive ruined wall, leaving the scene behind. Standing completely alone in the wreckage, Yui quietly watches them leave, noting this whole mess was an epic disaster. So what do you and I make of this? Back at the wall, Vice Captain Shilty looks completely stressed, asking Yui if she is really okay letting Theo's crew just walk away like that. Stick with me here. This crew might become a massive threat later on. Yui just smiles, completely unbothered. Shili sighs, deciding they will deal with that mess when it finally happens. Yui teases his grumpy mood and tells him to chill out. She is super cheerful right now because she met an absolutely fascinating guy today. Shili stares like she is totally crazy, asking if she actually means Theo. He points out how Theo somehow got Lady Ray, Macon, and their crew completely wrapped around his little finger. Shili is confused. Yui literally just met the guy, so he cannot grasp why she rates him so high. Yui flips the question, asking what he thinks of Theo. Shili does not hold back. He bluntly states he has zero interest in the kid. No appeal at all. Sure, Theo was framed, but he lost to a low-tier scrub like Bram. To Shili, the guy is not even worth a second glance. Yui just smiles. Shili is missing the entire point. She explains Theo's real power has absolutely nothing to do with fighting. It is his insane talent to pull people in. Her face darkens, hinting that if Shili fought him, the actual outcome might completely shock everyone. But she stops herself, suddenly thinking about the crazy timing of everything. Now watch closely. She remembers the Demon King being sealed for ages. A terrifying comparison she just quickly laughs off. She crushes some rubble in her hand, deciding it is pure coincidence. Later, we shift to a way funnier battlefield. The kitchen. Ray is cooking while Theo supervises, arms still stuck in a sling. Total disaster. An egg is frying, then boom. A massive fire pillar explodes straight from the pan. Ray totally panics, screaming for somebody to extinguish it. Cannon stares with absolutely dead eyes. How do you make an egg explode? Ray pouts, admitting cooking is ridiculously hard. Theo feels bad, apologizing, since his injury means he cannot cook the food himself. Ray mumbles she thought his coaching would work. Cannon just begs them to buy takeout instead. As this chaotic day finally wraps up, we jump way back in time. Long, long ago, a legendary myth echoed across the world. It featured a woman with magical power so immense that even wild monsters completely adored her. Before long, she conquered half the globe and was eventually crowned the terrifying Demon Lord. But I know you didn't see this coming. Rebels finally showed up, revealing this mighty Demon Lord was actually completely human. The brutal war between humans and monsters dragged on for ages and ages. But eventually, one single human was born who would flip everything upside down. The hero, facing true justice, the Demon King fell, forced into deep ceiling inside a massive crystal. Then smack, a giant book snaps totally shut. A noble girl with long twintails sits under a tree, sighing heavily and yelling that the whole story is completely boring. The girl, Lady Toru, complains to her butler, Alba. No need to read aloud, she memorized it well enough to recite asleep. Alba tries calming her, but she dismisses the history completely. Only the epic hero versus Demon King clash actually matters. Alba nervously says the hero festival starts soon. It is a vital gathering for foreign lords. Everyone is stressed. Toru laughs it off, confident their land Astras is entirely safe. She teases he'll get sealed away for worrying so much. Alba internally frets. If she keeps acting up, Queen Charles will be absolutely heartbroken. Toru suddenly declares if he acts like that, they are going to Toria. Alba totally panics, stammering about preparations. Toru cuts him off, saying she will be perfectly fine if Alba is with her. She marches off, demanding he take her. Alba chases after her in pure panic. Back in the present, Theo is staring at another complete kitchen nightmare. Staring at a scorched black lump, he admits failure. Alvin looks absolutely disgusted, telling Theo he should eat that horrible mess himself. Later on, at the mansion's dining room night, Commander Yue pays a super unexpected visit. Theo nervously asks why she visited so randomly. Finishing her meal and tea, Yue politely praises the amazing food. Flustered, Theo thanks her, figuring she is just here for some official night business. He mentions that if she needs Ray, she is out hunting right now. Yue shakes her head. Trust me, you're going to love this. She isn't here for Ray, but specifically for Master Theo. Theo looks baffled. Alright, stick with me. Theo points to himself, totally shocked. But Yue confirms she has a specific job request just for him. Theo asks if she means actual work. Yue mentions the upcoming Hero Festival, and Theo nervously asks what exactly they are supposed to do. He mentions that back during his night days, he only ever watched these wild festivities from a distance. He suddenly realizes he is bringing up his heavy past, and apologizes for dampening the mood. Yue assures him it is fine. She reminds him a former knight knows the Hero Festival isn't just fun. It is a huge celebration honoring when the hero brought back light, finally ending the Demon King's terrible reign of darkness. She explains that VIPs from all over will be gathering to conduct serious state affairs, and as the host nation, they are definitely expected to behave with much more elegance. Theo starts sweating buckets, asking if she expects him to cook for these VIPs or act as a bodyguard. Yue drops the bomb. She actually wants him to serve as a certain VIP's escort. Theo is totally bewildered. Yue explains it is the princess of Atoria, their neighbor, admitting the royal is incredibly selfish and very difficult. She describes her own nights crying, begging to escape this duty. Hearing this, Theo instantly realizes he is being completely set up here. Yue confirms he is the guy. Watch closely, we both know his reaction. He deadpans, telling her to leave. He starts panicking hard, yelling. He cannot handle such massive responsibility since he is just an ordinary guy. Yue insists he's being too modest. She points out he is the only human, the strongest adventurer Ray Silverhorn ever opened up to. She firmly believes he has a special, undeniable talent for opening people's guarded hearts. Commander Yue lays out the terms of this offer. She points out Theo definitely cannot use his injured arm forever, asking how he feels about the terrible prospect of being stuck that way permanently. It is a clear ultimatum wrapped in a job offer. Back home, the group discusses the proposal. Rai immediately shuts it down, refusing to let Theo take this dangerous job. Theo prepares to agree, but Kenan loudly interrupts with pure excitement and enthusiasm. She argues the reward, magical healing for Theo's arm, is an absolute godsend, especially since potions are super rare during these monster outbreaks. Rai tries scolding her, but Kenan points out that Theo cannot even cook properly in his current, weakened state. Even if this job smells super fishy, the payout is worth it. Rai cuts right through Kenan's logic, accusing her of just wanting to eat a real, delicious meal again. Kenan frantically denies it, but eventually cracks. She admits she is incredibly bored of convenience store snacks and wants a hearty dinner. Rai feels vindicated, exposing Kenan's gluttony. But here's the crazy part and I didn't expect. Theo actually agrees. Living with one arm is proving way harder than he expected. Kenan immediately jumps on this, shouting, "She told them so." Rai softens her fierce expression, asking Theo directly what he actually wants to do, regardless of the others. Theo seriously thinks about it a moment. He considers that Commander Yue actually did not seem like a bad person at all, and more importantly, he really wants to be able to cook amazing food for Ray and the team again. He finally tells Ray he wants to take the job. Ray accepts his decision immediately, telling him if he is decided, then that's what he should do. Later, they arrive at the Grand Hall, where Yue is waiting. Yue welcomes Theo, looking pleasantly surprised he arrived so soon to accept the position. Theo tries speaking up, but Yue notices the two intense people standing behind him. Her eyes widen as she realizes exactly who Theo has brought along as his entourage. Yue seems highly amused that two S-rank adventurers are acting as escorts. She turns her gaze to the Silver Princess, saying she is totally satisfied just because she came to visit, familiarly addressing her as Reiwana-sama. Rai coldly replies that she didn't exactly come here to see Yue. Yue teases her for being cold, but Rai cuts straight to business. She states she has one big condition regarding Theo's employment, leaving Yue looking surprised. Ray steps forward with her demands. She states clearly she will also be joining the mission as the princess's escort. She tells Yue she can decide specific job details, but Ray's active participation is the absolute, non-negotiable condition for Theo to accept this offer. Yue calmly acknowledges the bold statement. Just then, Kenan struts right into the room, claiming she doesn't know what her cheeky little sister is plotting, but she figures she better tag along, just to keep an eye on things. She poses confidently, pointing out that getting two literal S-rank adventurers as bodyguards is a hell of a deal. She challenges Yue, asking if she's really going to brush off an offer like that. Yui's demeanor instantly flips. She claps her hands together with a bright smile, loudly shouting she understands and accepts those terms immediately. She beams, having zero reason to refuse. And honestly, trust me on this, she feels way safer with them on escort duty. Let's dive in. Theo looks totally thrown off by her sudden attitude shift, stammering to ask if she is absolutely sure. Yue leans in super close to a confused Theo. She whispers that this helps her out immensely, thrilled she just managed to secure the absolute strongest bodyguards possible. She slyly reminds him that she already had a brilliant plan, since everyone else complained about guarding the princess. She explains that his little stunt actually solves her massive problem perfectly. Flashing a dangerously pleasant smile, Yue breaks it down. If normal nights messed up this vital task, it would just mean way more annoying work for her. Theo finally connects the dots. He stares in utter shock, realizing she totally played him. He instantly accuses her of scheming this whole setup to lure them in. Playing innocent, Yui claims she only asked Theo. She emphasizes the girls completely made their own choice to join of their own free will. Getting exactly what she wanted, Yui turns to leave. Thanking Theo for settling this troublesome mess, she walks away. Glancing back, she secretly wonders just how deep this crazy guy's mysterious influence actually goes. Calling him Lord Theo, she formally asks if they are finally ready to get going. They stroll through an incredibly lush garden surrounding a white gazebo. Yui praises the magnificent garden. Theo totally agrees, though he jokes that after 3 days, it just becomes normal background scenery. Glancing around at the vibrant plants, he admits it is amazing. Watch closely now. Yui explains, their mysterious sensei is the very last person who actually cares about keeping this magical place so beautiful. Wearing a sling, Theo asks if she should not be busy escorting the royal princess. Yui calmly explains the princess is delayed, and more importantly, they must heal his arm. She flatly states the real mission cannot begin until he heals. Theo agrees as they reach a herb-covered door. Yui introduces Master Fritz, the legendary magician's cool room. Inside this wild greenhouse filled with plants, Theo looks around, asking if the magician is actually present. Yui assures him she is. She calls for Professor Fritz, getting absolutely zero response. She yells louder. Suddenly, a super dark shadow moves swiftly behind the dense foliage. A hooded figure abruptly materializes behind Yui, immediately grabbing her chest with both hands. Complaining about the loud noise, the figure ignores boundaries completely. She gropes Yui, cheerfully noting she still has a very nice pair, trying to stay professional while being fondled. Yui tells her master she brought someone special to meet. The hooded figure stares at Canon, asking if Yui means the heavily endowed lady standing nearby. Totally loving Canon's vibe, the wild figure boldly asks to squeeze her chest a bit. Canon instantly shuts that ridiculous request down with firm refusal. Calling her sister Canon, Yui firmly warns the figure named Momi-sensei that she will tolerate absolutely zero rudeness. Sighing, the figure complains they are stingy, asking about the guest. Seeing Theo, she is completely shocked to realize it is a man. She immediately recoils in pure disgust, aggressively declaring she absolutely hates men. Throwing off her hood, she reveals glasses, braids, and a revealing outfit. Looming over Theo, she aggressively insults him. Since he lacks a fun chest to squeeze, she bluntly declares him completely useless. Getting right in his face with the crazed expression, she loudly demands to know why he even came without anything fun to grope. We both felt that one. Theo stands there completely baffled, stammering, confused. Suddenly, Theo catches a sweet scent in the air, immediately identifying cinnamon. Ray Silverhorn notices too, confirming the sweet scent. Looking impressed, Fritz tells Theo he is surprisingly sharp to catch that tiny detail. Theo is super confused though, recalling that cinnamon definitely is not supposed to grow in this particular country. He asks how she pulled this off. Fritz notes he is well informed. She explains humans always crave what they lack, and greedy nobles are especially prone to that silly mindset. She introduces the awesome cinnamon herb, explaining she brilliantly crossbred regular herbs with cinnamon, creating a variety that grows perfectly here. Producing that perfect scent was tough, but she proudly brags that for a genius mage like her, it was an absolute piece of cake. That's where we leave it. Theo gets incredibly excited, realizing the cinnamon herb will unlock so many epic new culinary dishes. Rai instantly lights up, asking if she gets to eat tons of yummy food. Stick with me here. Theo confirms it is not just food, explaining cinnamon makes sweet hot drinks absolutely amazing too. Ray's stomach rumbles loudly, telling him to hurry up and make something. Theo starts brainstorming right then. In the background, Fritz looks super awkward about being totally ignored during this recipe chat. Muttering a soft apology, even though it is not her fault. Fritz suddenly shifts the topic, saying nice and asking what his name actually is. Anyway, he replies that his name is Theo. Wasting zero time, Fritz demands he follow her. Totally confused, Theo asks where they are heading. Fritz glances back, questioning what his problem is and reminding him he came here to get his bad injuries treated. Theo snaps out of his daze and quickly agrees. Arriving at a heavy wooden door, he nervously asks her where they actually are. Fritz bluntly says they are in her private room. Shocked, Theo asks if she will treat him here. She completely confirms it, claiming her magic is a top secret. Suddenly, a dark, swirling ball of raw energy begins forming right inside her hand. Fritz smugly reminds him she is a mage. Theo stares at the intense energy in pure shock, loudly exclaiming that it is real healing magic. He mentions hearing that healing magic is supposed to be insanely difficult to do. Fritz completely agrees with him, holding up the swirling magic with a super confident smile. She proudly declares that high difficulty is exactly why she is a known genius mage. Fritz finishes casting her powerful spell, and warm light fully envelops Theo's hand. As the bright light fades, Theo looks down, completely amazed, seeing his injury is fully gone. Holding the herb jar, Theo asks if she is absolutely sure, since she already healed his wounds and is now handing over free supplies too. Fritz coolly brushes it off, saying she can grow more herbs whenever she wants. Striking a confident pose, she quickly adds one little condition. If he uses those herbs to cook something super tasty, he better share some too. Theo eagerly agrees, happily shouting, he will. Suddenly, the door violently flies open and a panicked guard bursts inside, stammering out a huge emergency. Ray sighs heavily, knowing that it is just one guy after another today. The absolutely panicked guard asks for Lord Theo. When Theo identifies himself, the guard apologizes endlessly, explaining he was sent by Captain Hewitt. Now pay attention to this bombshell. The Astra's princess just arrived. Theo realizes they are keeping a royal VIP waiting. In the background, Cannon, his S-rank adventurer friend, totally panics and says she must get ready immediately. The scene shifts to the reception room, where Princess Toru is already making demanding complaints. Complaining loudly about the hard chair, she arrogantly orders it to be changed this instant. Cannon, who changed into a cute maid outfit to help, secretly thinks the spoiled girl is unbelievable. Toru continues her annoying tirade, demanding to know why tea is missing and insulting their basic hospitality. Cannon whispers to Alvin, asking if this tiny brat even knows who she is. Forcing a perfectly polite smile, she tells the princess tea is coming right away. Pouring a warm cup, Cannon thinks this girl is an even more outrageous princess than she ever imagined, but she still politely tells her to help herself. Toru takes one sip and immediately criticizes Cannon, calling her super clumsy and lecturing about how someone like her would never survive in Astra's. Cannon loses her patience, dismissively muttering, yeah, what is it? This causes the furious princess to snap and yell at the blatant disrespect. Can you believe this? Toru spits hot tea right into Cannon's face. The butler, Alba, and maids watch in pure horror as liquid drenches the mighty S-rank adventurer. Toru coldly states the tea tastes awful, arrogantly declaring that when royalty asks for tea, it should obviously be milk tea. Dripping wet and visibly trembling with rage, Cannon angrily mutters that she cannot believe this is happening. Cannon forces an apology and offers to remake the tea, admitting that is exactly why she must fix it. Toru cuts her off with a super smug grin, bluntly calling her totally flat-chested. That completely snaps Cannon's mind. She yells back that the princess just has a totally childish palate and cannot handle straight tea. Plus, if milk actually made chests bigger, every single woman would be chugging it. Toru coolly retorts that Cannon must have hated drinking milk, heavily implying that is why she remains small. Cannon trembles with absolute rage, angrily muttering that she tried keeping her mouth shut, but has reached her absolute limit. Regaining her cool composure, Cannon looks down at the arrogant girl, calmly saying, her words carry zero weight here. Toru stammers, calling her a brat, but Kanon interrupts, smiling, offering one piece of advice. Her expression darkens ominously as she delivers an absolutely savage burn. Even Kanon might still have a future where she grows, but there might be zero future growth for tiny Toru, so she better live strong. That is where we leave it. Toru breaks down screaming, terrified she is doomed to stay flat forever. Let's dive right in. Alba steps up, declaring, "That is enough." He physically blocks Kanon from approaching the princess. He flashes an intensely terrifying glare, breaking his calm demeanor. The butler admits Lady Toru was incredibly rude, but he calmly asks Kanon to please drop the issue. Kanon sweats from the sudden pressure, totally wondering who on earth this guy actually is. Right then, Theo bursts through the door, yelling Kanon's name to check if she is okay. Kanon stares, totally shocked by his sudden entrance. Theo feels the heavy tension and asks about her panicked look, but quickly realizes his mistake. He frantically clarifies his words, asking if she did anything rude to the royal princess. Pointing at herself in pure disbelief, Kanon loudly yells that she is actually the victim here. Toru demands absolute silence, screaming that they stand before royalty. She continues her angry tirade, threatening to file an official national protest over this unacceptable treatment. Theo apologizes nervously, trying to calm the messy situation. Alba bows deeply, offering his own apologies while suggesting Lady Toru is just exhausted from her long journey. Toru instantly snaps at him to stop speaking, fiercely insisting she is not tired. Ignoring her loud outburst, Alba quietly hints to Theo that Toru has a massive sweet tooth. The princess keeps shouting at her butler to stop deciding things. Catching Alba's hint, Theo quietly mutters to himself about making something sweet. Now watch this. He heads straight toward the kitchen, thinking he never expected this epic moment so quickly. He grabs the jar of herbs received from Professor Fritz earlier, fully realizing the time to whip up that special dish has arrived sooner than he ever imagined. We jump right back into the kitchen, where Theo is working hard. He grabs some bright red apples, happily admiring their vibrant color before getting started. He slices them up with practiced precision, moving swiftly from one apple to the next, and then tosses the diced pieces into a pot to lightly simmer. While working, Theo is practically crying happy tears of joy, feeling overwhelmed by how amazing it is to just use both hands for cooking again. He happily reminds himself that he must make sure Ray and Kanon get plenty to eat too. He rolls out the dough, stretching it thin, and reveals the big secret ingredient. Those very special herbs he got from Professor Fritz. He sprinkles them generously over the mixture. With the herb-infused apple filling arranged neatly in the tart shell, Theo layers strips of dough perfectly across the top, creating a beautiful lattice. Once beautifully assembled, he slides it straight into the oven to bake. Meanwhile, back in the dining room, the mood is getting super restless. Someone complains about his speed, and Tor demands to know how long they must wait for this guy, shouting that she is totally starving. Rai totally agrees he is being slow, but Kanon suddenly realizes something. You and I both know what is coming, right? He is making that specific legendary dish. Alba nervously watches the two adventurers, honestly thinking those knowing smirks on their faces are genuinely creepy. Finally, Theo walks in, apologizing for the wait, while Kanon instantly barks at him for being late. Toru stares, bewildered, asking what on earth he brought in. Theo wheels his cart forward, explaining that the baking process simply took a bit of time. He serves up a whole pastry, proudly introducing it as their special apple pie. As the sweet aroma wafts through the room, Ray catches a whiff, mentioning the smell is exactly the same as before. Theo beams, super pleased she noticed the special ingredient. Theo places a mint-garnished pie slice in front of Lady Toru, inviting her to taste it. She tries maintaining her haughty attitude, nervously stammering that she is actually quite particular about her food flavors. But the second she takes a bite, her eyes go wide. She totally loses her composure and shouts it is delicious. Theo immediately moves to pour her tea, smoothly instructing her to enjoy it straight today. Toru tries to protest, stuttering that she always drinks milk tea. But Theo firmly insists on serving it black. She takes another bite, and her eyes instantly light up with pure, sparkling joy. She happily exclaims, "It is delicious." Theo smiles, explaining his method. The incredible sweetness of the pie mellows out the strong bitterness of the tea, leaving a wonderfully clean aftertaste. He adds that even flavors she normally dislikes can become deeply rich and enjoyable depending on how they are paired, cheerfully promising the next pie will be even better. Toru just stares, totally stunned by the amazing experience. Meanwhile, in the background, Kanon and Rei are totally ignoring the lecture, happily stuffing their faces with pie. Theo notices them, cheerfully telling everyone to just enjoy the food. Toru turns to her butler, addressing him as Araba, and insists he should eat some too. He politely replies, he already had some, agreeing, "Is truly exquisite. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next." Kanon stares him down, asking if he is the legendary guardian deity, Araba. "Come along with me." She thought he retired, never expecting him working at the palace. Kanon admits she was totally caught off guard. His skills are razor sharp. Definitely not retired. Alba just laughs it off, claiming a quiet retirement is full of joy. Then, suddenly, Toru stands up and points right at the cook. She demands Theo come work for her country, boldly declaring she will make him her own personal servant right now. The whole table, Kanon, Rei, Theo, and even Alba, completely freezes in shock at this crazy proposal. Theo starts flailing in absolute panic, stammering that this is way too sudden. Toru pushes hard, insisting serving royalty is a massive honor. She argues the environment is miles better than just being a cook, so there is literally zero reason for him to refuse this deal. Before he can even answer, she tells Alba to handle the details later. The butler simply bows, totally agreeing. She tells Theo to head to Astra's once the Hero Festival officially ends. Finally finding his voice, Theo politely interrupts. He thanks her, bows his head, and firmly states he cannot accept, leaving Toru completely and utterly stunned. Toru looks so offended, asking if he is really rejecting her, and if he actually cares that much about this castle. Theo calmly tells her no, that is not it. He clarifies he does not serve a nation or a castle. He only serves Rei Silverhorn. Toru looks totally confused, pointing at the silver-haired girl, asking if he actually means that mercenary. Standing nearby, Alba watches Rei and chuckles. He knows this is going to be a super difficult mission for his mistress. Assessing her incredible strength, he notes his old body wouldn't stand a single chance fighting against an amazing S-rank adventurer like her. Kanon confirms Rei is indeed an S-rank, though she looks super annoyed having to actually admit it. Rei stands up, looking imposing, praising Alba, but Kanon gets totally distracted by Rei's chest size, muttering with pure jealousy about what she is packing. Watch closely, things get totally chaotic as Toru tries to literally buy Theo. She offers 10 silver coins, instantly rejected. Kanon screams she is an S-rank too, demanding people stop judging by chest size, completely misreading the room. Toru nervously raises the offer to gold coins, but Rei instantly shuts it down with a sharp nope. Rei smiles warmly, explaining Theo is super important to her. You simply cannot put a price on that bond. Toru is left looking so dejected, muttering she just cannot understand that kind of logic. Rei smiles gently, telling the young noble she will find someone precious for herself someday too. Alba chuckles in the background as Rei adds she will understand when the time comes. Looking completely defeated, Toru grits her teeth, admitting she lost this round. Just then, a booming voice interrupts from the doorway. A massive figure happily declares things look lively in here, calling out to absolutely everyone. The intruder strikes a super dramatic pose. King Dad Delistria himself. He loudly asks to join the fun. Alba is stunned, wondering who it was, only to find the literal king standing right there. You and I both know this is wild. Theo is shocked the king crashed their dinner. Alba nervously introduces himself as Lady Tararu's escort. Theo explains, the king insisted on coming and would not take no for an answer. Along with the king, Yui and Dr. Fritz have joined the table. The king commands everyone to dig in, but he pauses, tasting a specific dish, noting it uses cinnamon herb. Dr. Fritz calls it impressive, but the king looks stern, loudly accusing Theo of using a super valuable herb without asking. Theo completely panics, apologizing endlessly, declaring he is ready for absolutely any punishment. Suddenly, the king bursts into booming laughter, shouting his total approval. He calls it delicious, demanding more. Theo stammers a weak yes, relieved it was a joke. But the king is not finished. He says he is hungry again, demanding something super hearty since they are already eating. Theo frantically promises to cook, but Ray chimes in. She wants to eat more too, because she definitely has not had enough. Theo begs them to wait a second as orders pile up. Later, festival preparations are fully underway outside. 2 workers sit on a scaffold taking a quick break, cheerfully noting they will manage to get everything totally ready in time. One worker leans in, asking his buddy if he heard the huge rumor going around town. The other guy acts vague, asking what rumors. Then, his friend drops a massive bomb. So what do you and I make of this? They claim the demon lord might revive. His friend gets super nervous, dismissing the wild rumor, wondering why such crazy talk even started. Let's jump in. A long-haired woman suddenly interrupts their talk. She totally scolds them. She says talking about bad omens before the festival even starts is just going to make the hero super sad. The workers instantly back down, laughing nervously and apologizing for the gloomy topic. Over at the festival prep, everyone is rushing to finish up. One guy tells his buddy they still have work left, and his friend just snaps at him to hurry up. Meanwhile, that long-haired woman is quietly watching from the shadows. She sighs at their bickering, gazing up at the beautiful starry sky. To her, heroes and demon lords were always just supposed to be silly fairy tales. But somehow, she feels a weird connection to this festival. Little do they know, an ancient sealed demon lord is actually starting to wake up right beneath their feet. The scene cuts to the city streets, completely packed with festival crowds. Walking right through this crazy hustle and bustle are Theo and Lady Toru. Toru looks absolutely thrilled to be out, while Theo is a total nervous wreck, literally sweating buckets as he desperately tries to keep up. Toru flashes a massive smile, urging the whole group to hurry up and get moving. Poor Theo follows along, secretly wondering how his life ended up like this. Behind him, the entire escort squad Alba, Cannon, and Ray are trudging along with totally dead eyes, clearly dragged into this against their will. They finally head inside a building. Now pay attention here. Alba suddenly stops Theo for a totally private moment. He calls out to Theo with a slight bow, thanking him for what he did. Theo just looks totally confused, asking what he is even being thanked for. Alba smiles warmly and says it is about Lady Toru. He has not seen her this happy in a long time. Theo gets super flustered, waving his hands. He says, no thanks are needed, because he was just desperately trying to survive that crazy cooking challenge. But Alba suddenly gets super serious. He leans in close and drops an incredibly heavy truth right on Theo. Lady Toru is actually not the biological child of the king and queen. Theo lets out a totally shocked gasp. Alba explains the queen could not have kids, but the loyal king completely refused to ever marry anyone else. Alba continues the story. To leave a royal heir, the king actually had an outsider bear the child instead. That heavy decision caused a massive rift between the royal couple, and slowly, the king's relationships with everyone around him became totally distorted. Theo suddenly realizes this intense family drama explains Toru's behavior. Alba knows this, but admits that her tragic backstory really does not justify Toru causing so much trouble for everyone else. After Theo laughs awkwardly, Alba bows deeply. You and I know where this is going. He continues his serious request in the hallway. He asks Theo to keep an eye on Lady Toru, but only within whatever limits he can actually handle. Just a simple request from an old busybody. Theo stammers hard, asking why he was chosen for this and seriously questioning his own ability to guide anyone. Alba reassures him, truly believing that Theo has a very special power to positively influence all the people around him. When Theo still looks unsure, Alba firmly tells the boy he can absolutely do it. The butler claims he just knows thanks to old man intuition. He hands Theo a folded object, and Theo looks super confused, accepting it. Theo realizes it is a handkerchief, and Alba confirms his own name is embroidered on it. He explains it might be super useful to show this item if anything bad happens later. It is the absolute highest token of sincerity he can offer as a butler. Theo thanks him, still sweating and confused, asking why Alba is telling him all this. Alba just repeats that it is a hunch, but internally, Alba pictures a bright future where Theo helps Toru become a fine, beloved queen. With that super heavy conversation completely wrapped up, the scene shifts once again. Theo narrates that because the king loved his apple pie earlier, he was officially put directly in charge of attending to the energetic Lady Toru. Instantly using her new authority, Toru demanded to go out into the city. So, the whole squad ends up walking through town. They stop at a fancy building, and Toru decides the shop looks great, boldly declaring they are all going inside. They step into a high-end jewelry store packed with sparkling chandeliers and insanely expensive displays. Theo looks around in pure awe, muttering it is amazing. Alvin stands beside him, explaining this is the greatest jewelry store in town. Meanwhile, Kanon is already off browsing the shiny merchandise. She spots something she loves, murmuring, "It is a great idea," and instantly tries on this absolutely massive diamond necklace. Theo totally freaks out. He waves his hands, calling her an idiot, terrified she might scratch the super expensive merchandise. Kanon just laughs it off, saying if she scratches it, she will simply buy it. Theo remembers she is an S-rank adventurer with crazy money. You and I totally forgot too, right? Let's jump right into this crazy trip. Another voice calls Theo over. Kanon confidently slides a massive jeweled ring onto her finger, catching the bright light perfectly. She shoots Theo a super confident smile, asking if it suits her. Theo just stares, totally stunned. He actually admits she looks so amazing. He is completely speechless. Loving it, Kanon starts posing aggressively, demanding even more attention. She insists the look is fabulous, but the whole group just stares totally blankly. Losing her temper, she yells at Theo, Ray, and Alvin. She complains their totally flat reactions are way too honest, begging them for some real consideration. Ray finally chimes in with the totally deadpan expression, flatly stating it suits her. Kanon instantly snaps back. She yells that Ray sounds way more monotone than usual, fiercely demanding to know what that means. Checking out the next display, Toru gracefully tries on a sparkling tiara. She turns to Theo looking super vulnerable, and softly asks if it suits her. She really pushes him to be totally honest about it. Theo blushes hard, getting totally flustered. He sincerely tells her it suits her perfectly. He was just speechless because of how absolutely gorgeous she looked in it. Toru blushes, gently touching the tiara and asking if he really means it. Alba chuckles warmly from the sidelines, noting she looks extremely pleased, being praised by Lord Theo. Theo stammers, totally shocked to be put on the spot, but Alba gently adds that words from sincere people carry serious weight. Toru shyly turns away, hiding her blushing face while admitting this is super embarrassing. Then, the group spots a massive sparkling gem on display called White Bright. Pay attention to this part, Alba explains. This special gemstone is given to someone precious. Theo listens closely as the butler reveals the stone holds raw magic, concealing a single powerful spell inside. Theo worries something like that could easily be misused, but Alba clarifies there is one massive catch. The magic only works for two people who truly love each other. Alba laughs, mentioning hilarious stories where the shiny gem simply refused to ever activate. Theo laughs awkwardly. In the background, Kanon looks totally stressed, holding her ring, suddenly realizing it is made from the exact same material. Meanwhile, Toru quietly touches the glowing pendant around her neck. She realizes it is the same stone. Her mother gave it as a token of the queen's love. But touching it, a heavy thought suddenly crosses her mind. She just cannot trust something like that. Lady Toraru suddenly storms right out of the shop, shouting they are hitting the next location immediately. Alba and Theo trail behind, but she suddenly freezes in her tracks, boldly declaring this next spot is their absolute last. Out on the street, the vibe totally shifts. Can you believe this? Kenan and Ray face off, looking incredibly serious. Someone announces the match, and Rai fiercely tells her rival to bring it. Eyes locked, they scream rock, paper, scissors. With the wild intensity of a major battle, they throw their hands out together, and the sharp sound echoes everywhere. Rai stares at the hands, noting another tie. Kenan, ridiculously focused, completely agrees with that assessment. These two S-rank adventurers jump straight into the next round, endlessly shouting to try it all over again. Watching from the sidelines, Alba realizes these two are on a completely different level than regular people. Being absolute elite fighters, they perfectly read their opponent's muscle movements in the very split second before that hand ever swings down. Since they both react instantly, the crazy result is just an endless loop of non-stop TIs. Theo stands there totally lost. Finally, both exhausted girls completely collapse onto the pavement. Ray pants heavily, noting they hit 30 draws in a row, and proudly admitting Kenan has truly improved. Kenan instantly snaps back that she never considered herself inferior to Rai anyway. Theo looks down at the panting girls, genuinely asking why on earth they are playing rock paper scissors. Rai turns to him with a terrifyingly serious expression, explaining the crazy stakes. She put absolutely everything on the line just for the right to have Theo tell her it looks good. Theo completely freezes, wondering how the situation spiraled so wildly. Kenan glares at Theo with terrifying eyes. She tells him to shut up, claiming his tasteless words are totally ruining their incredibly serious match. Theo completely panics, waving his hands frantically. He desperately argues that even if they win, forced compliments will never make them happy. He insists he gives proper praise when he actually means it. That flawless logic hits the girls hard. Kenan looks down, admitting he has a point. Even Ray realizes a totally forced compliment wouldn't actually make her happy. Theo nervously takes the perfect chance to tell them to calm down. Theo finally catches up to the group on the street, wiping sweat away. Super relieved they are all safe. Alba looks genuinely surprised, seeing him and the others appear so suddenly. So what do we make of this? Theo watches Lady Toru walk away, realizing from her posture, she is feeling incredibly lonely. Alright, stick with me here. Theo turns to Alba, apologizes, but finally decides to step right in. Alba begs Lady Toru to wait, but she completely snaps. She fiercely asks if he is not just thrilled to finally lose such a huge nuisance. Theo quickly cuts in, figuring Alba definitely said something to upset her earlier. He bows, apologizing for being meddlesome, but he flat out refuses to back down. He shouts to Toru that he might actually fix her broken relationship with her mother. Toru stops dead in her tracks, turns around, and glares at him with absolute, pure skepticism. She fiercely demands what someone like him could possibly do. She openly admits his weird angle makes zero sense. Theo simply asks for one single chance to try. Bam! The scene instantly shifts from the busy street straight into a massive kitchen. Inside that kitchen, Theo drops his ultimate master plan. They are going to cook a meal. Toru stares totally blankly, asking what on earth he means. Theo asks about her cooking experience, and she bluntly snaps that of course, she has absolutely none. Now watch this. Instead of giving up, Theo smiles, promising her lack of skill is actually perfect. Toru stays totally unconvinced. She argues a recipe is trivial, and he is just vastly exaggerating its true importance. Theo immediately corrects her, explaining that cooking takes real effort and trouble, which is exactly why it perfectly conveys your deep feelings to others. He tells her to master today's recipe for her mother, confidently promising that her true feelings will definitely reach whoever eats this special dish. Theo casually mentions Lady Toru reminds him of someone named Roberta. Toru gets super defensive, snapping back about what he could possibly know. Ignoring her attitude, Theo declares, "It is time to begin." He slams a huge cabbage on the counter, telling her to tear off leaves by hand while he expertly removes the core with the kitchen knife. Theo starts the lesson by asking Lady Toru if she has ever held a kitchen knife. She gets instantly defensive, furiously snapping that of course, she has never done that. Totally unfazed, Theo smiles, says he understands, and guides her to start by firmly gripping the handle. He gently guides her other hand to stabilize the vegetable, and boom, she successfully slices right into that tough cabbage. Toru gets super excited, shouting that it actually cut. Next up is the filling. Theo lists minced meat, onions, breadcrumbs, and eggs, instructing her to toss them all into a big bowl and mix them up really well. Toru hesitates, completely grossed out by the raw meat's texture, loudly complaining that it feels slimy and totally disgusting. Theo just laughs, cheering her on to do her absolute best. He explains the next steps, telling her to boil the cabbage leaves and drain them. Then they start shaping the meat mixture. Toru gingerly forms a patty, totally unsure of herself. But Theo gives her a massive confidence boost, swearing it looks absolutely perfect. He then carefully guides her to place that shaped meat right onto the prepared cabbage leaves. Theo then instructs her to tightly wrap the meat using the cabbage leaf. Toru manages to fold one up and shows it off proudly. She asks how it looks, happily, noting she actually rolled it pretty well herself. Following Theo, they pack the cabbage rolls tightly into a pot. He tells her to pour water, add consomme, and finally, toss in a bay leaf to perfectly season the broth. We all know this feeling. The pot simmers, and Toru asks what comes next. Theo tells her there is nothing left to do but wait. Toru stares out the window, looking super anxious, wondering aloud if her mother will actually eat the meal she worked so hard on. Right then, outside the grand mansion, a fancy carriage arrives. A loud voice announces their arrival, addressing someone named Lady Sure. As the door swings open, a stunning woman steps elegantly out of the carriage. It is a breathtaking lady with flowing light hair who looks strikingly similar to Toru herself. She stands before the massive estate, stating she knows Toru is hiding there. Meanwhile, back in the kitchen, those cabbage rolls are steaming hot and smelling absolutely ready. Toru excitedly asks if it is finally time to take them off the heat. Theo checks the simmering pot and confirms that everything looks amazing. Suddenly, he hears a huge commotion from the front of the house. He turns his head, completely wondering who could possibly arrive at this hour. Theo asks the gorgeous, unexpected visitor who she is. The woman politely introduces herself as Shurel, but then she casually drops a truly massive bombshell. She reveals that she is actually Toru's own mother. Theo tries his best to stay polite, confirming she is Toru's mother and asking what brings her here. Shurel simply explains she heard Toru was hiding at this specific location. While she speaks, the gears in Theo's brain start spinning. Wild. If Toru is royalty, and this is her mother, that means he is literally standing face to face with the queen. He completely loses his cool, screaming out in pure shock and totally stammering, "Your Majesty?" Shurel nervously confirms his wild suspicion just as the butler Alba finally arrives on the scene, greeting Lady Sure with pure relief. Theo immediately turns to the butler, frantically asking if he was the sneaky one who actually called her and told her to wait right here. Alba confirms sending a bird. "Trust me, we definitely need to see what happens next. Let's dive right in." Theo looks totally baffled by communication birds as Toru swings the door open, loudly complaining about the outside noise. She mutters to herself about her recent cooking success, desperately trying to calm her own nerves as she slowly steps out into the yard. But the moment Toru steps outside, she completely freezes. She stammers out the word mother in absolute disbelief. Sure stares at her daughter with overwhelming emotion, calling her name. Toru stands there, completely stunned, eyes wide open. But that initial shock rapidly turns into a glaring look of pure annoyance and fiery anger. Instantly defensive, Toru starts shouting at her mother, demanding to know why on earth she traveled all the way out here. Looking deeply hurt, Shur stammers out that she heard Toru was all alone and felt worried. But Toru fiercely snaps right back, yelling that she never asked for her concern. Heartbroken, Shur realizes this is not how she wanted their reunion to go at all, softly and sadly whispering her own daughter's name. Before this intense argument can escalate any further, Theo steps in. He gently pats Toru on the head, calmly telling her that it is time to prepare the meal. Shur lets out a confused gasp at the interruption. Theo shoots a confident wink to show he is in control, diffusing the heavy tension like a true host. He warmly invites Shur, calling her Your Majesty, to come inside, announcing that Lady Toru prepared a special meal just for her. Stunned by this invitation, Shur asks in total disbelief if Toru actually cooked. Now, pay close attention here. Back in the kitchen, that pot is steaming hot. Theo declares it is finally time to open the lid. But Toru looks incredibly nervous, internally panicking and sweating. Toru stresses over what to do if the food actually tastes terrible. Then, she remembers Theo's coaching. He told her to stay confident because she worked so hard, but hinted it was not fully finished yet. Back in reality, Toru looks visibly confused by his words. Theo explains they need to pour all her feelings into the final dish presentation. Toru argues the cooking is completely done and only needs plating, but Theo agrees, saying that is exactly where his magic philosophy happens. When you plate a dish while thinking of the person eating it, the food becomes infinitely better. Toru asks if he seriously means just thinking about them, and he confidently nods. Flustered but completely willing, she agrees to try, stammering that it is not like she actually believes in silly superstitions anyway. Scooping up the warm food while thinking about her mother, she slowly begins admitting a hidden truth to herself. You seeing this, right? The finished cabbage roll is plated beautifully. Cheryl stares at it, completely shocked. Toru actually cooked. Theo happily confirms with a huge smile. Cheryl steels herself, accepts the offer, and takes a cautious bite. Cheryl's eyes instantly light up, exclaiming that it is absolutely delicious. Toru looks away, totally blushing and telling her mother to stop flattering her. Cheryl insists it is the truth, claiming Toru might actually be way better than their own royal chef. Toru grumbles about her mother always exaggerating everything, but quietly admits that if she truly means it, she is genuinely happy to hear that. Watching closely, Toru internally notes that her mother is genuinely smiling. While Cheryl enjoys the warm meal with a gentle smile, silent tears hit the table. Overwhelmed, Toru completely breaks down crying. She finally admits the honest truth, she just wanted to stay like this forever. She tearfully apologizes for everything that happened. Looking tenderly at her crying daughter, Cheryl gently tells Toru to lift her head, taking the heavy blame herself. Cheryl says it is her own fault her precious daughter had to endure such awful things. Smiling through her own falling tears, she tells Toru this rolled cabbage was the absolute most delicious thing she has ever eaten. Apologizing for being an inadequate mother, she softly asks if Toru would be willing to make this exact dish again. Completely overwhelmed, Toru sobs and happily agrees. Crying out for her mother, they embrace incredibly tightly, finally reconciling. Quietly watching from the open doorway, Alba the butler and Theo witness this beautifully emotional reunion. Alba looks incredibly moved, while Theo smiles, scratching his cheek, genuinely glad everything worked out. Outside the grand mansion, the family prepares to leave. Cheryl warmly thanks Theo for all his amazing help. She explains they are staying nearby until the big hero festival starts, telling him to never hesitate to visit if he ever needs absolutely anything. Theo watches the carriage leave, family drama finally resolved. Back inside the dining room, the mood instantly shifts completely. Ray, Cannon, and Alvin are absolutely destroying all the delicious leftover cabbage rolls. Theo notes it is a very good thing he made plenty extra as the group aggressively demands seconds. Sitting perfectly calm amidst the chaos, Captain Yu wipes her mouth, praising the food. She notes this is her first time tasting Lord Theo's truly exquisite cooking. Trust me, you'll love this ending. Canon suddenly points his finger in pure shock, completely losing his mind over why Captain Yui is hanging with them. Yui totally ignores the drama and focuses on Theo. Stick with me here. It is seriously impressive how he fully resolved the Restoria family's messy situation. Staring with pure admiration, she calls Lord Theo a far greater man than expected. Sweating, Theo nervously asks if she traveled all this way just to tell him that. Yui's face suddenly turns dead serious. She tells him there is much more to discuss. Feeling the heavy tension, Theo totally understands. He suggests they change locations to chat somewhere strictly private. Theo jumps up from the table, telling everyone he needs to step out for a quick chat. Yui immediately turns to Rei, warmly assuring her that everything is fine, and there's zero need to worry. Rei gives a quick, simple nod, letting them step away. Naturally, Canon can't just let him walk away peacefully. She smirks, teasingly asking if he went ahead and found himself a brand new girl again. She playfully calls him Super Sly. The whole table instantly erupts into wild, chaotic bickering. But Theo finally manages to smoothly slip away alongside Yui. Safe outside the massive mansion, Theo asks Yui what they actually need to discuss. Reading his stressed face perfectly, Yui correctly guesses he is bracing for even more dramatic, annoying, and totally troublesome matters. Theo laughs nervously, totally busted. Now, pay close attention here. Yui completely skips the small talk and drops an absolute bombshell. She believes the legendary Demon King is about to be resurrected. Theo screams in pure shock, wildly stammering that this is way too sudden. Completely ignoring his total panic, Yui holds up a shiny pendant, asking him to look closely. She explains that its design features the hero's sword and a glowing crest. It is the Silverhorn family crest. She then reveals a super heavy truth. The entire Silverhorn family line, including Rei herself, are actually direct descendants of the legendary hero. Yui keeps laying out the dark facts. She describes an intensely creepy presence crawling straight up from the deep earth. She points out that wild monsters are growing way more violent in response. This means the terrifying Demon King's seal is almost breaking. Theo desperately tries waving it off, laughing anxiously and calling it a massive logic leap. But internally, he knows that even if she is completely right, he has absolutely zero power to actually help. Yui calmly acknowledges that Theo really lacks any actual martial strength whatsoever, but she smoothly counters that he possesses a special power to captivate literally everyone. She looks him dead in the eye, saying she firmly believes this unique power of his might actually be enough to reach the Demon King. Theo insists she is seriously overestimating him, but Yui just gives a mysterious little chuckle, simply saying, "Who knows?" Theo stands there completely overwhelmed, thinking that even hearing that definitely does not make things any easier. We both felt that, right? Inside the mansion, the mood completely flips. Rei happily chomps down on some tasty pickled vegetables. She sighs with deep satisfaction, noting how light and incredibly delicious the food is. Totally unbothered by the world potentially ending. Still at the dinner table, Rei casually mentions heading out again tomorrow for a wild monster hunt. She notes that requests keep piling up rapidly because much stronger monsters have been appearing way more frequently as of late. Theo acknowledges she has been super busy. Looking genuinely concerned, he gently tells her to be extremely careful out there. Rei just brushes it off with a blank expression, promising she will be fine. Later that very night, Theo sits completely alone in his quiet room, staring into the darkness. He simply cannot get Captain Yui's words about the Demon King's resurrection out of his head. Her dark warning weighs heavily on him. Suddenly, a soft knock hits the door, snapping him out of his spiraling thoughts. He gets up, wondering who it could possibly be at this late hour. He opens the door and is totally floored. Rei stands there wearing a gorgeous off-the-shoulder dress that definitely is not her usual armor. Flustered, Theo stammers loudly, asking, "What is up with that stunning outfit?" Rei casually explains that since they won't see each other for a while, she thought they could sleep together tonight. She innocently asks if that is okay, leaving Theo completely shocked and panicking over her phrasing. Inside his room, Ray instructs Theo to sit on the bed. Theo obeys, sweating bullets. His racing mind realizes that literally no man alive could ever say no to a situation like this. But then Ray sighs softly and plops herself right down, comfortably laying her head on his lap. Theo yelps in surprise as she gets super comfortable and simply tells him to relax. Lying on his lap, Ray looks up with a serious, gentle expression. She firmly tells him that she will always protect him. She admits not knowing exactly what Yui told him earlier, but heavily insists he should not worry about it. Theo tries reassuring her that everything is okay, and they merely talked a little, but she stays focused entirely on comforting him. Then, just like that, she is out cold. Theo yells that she fell asleep way too fast, but looking down at the peaceful, sleeping face of the girl who deeply cares for him, his expression completely softens. He makes a silent vow in that quiet moment. He strongly swears in his heart that he will do anything he can for Ray. What do you and I learn here? Even as the world dangerously shifts, he feels perfectly at peace. Come along with me into the bustling streets, where the whole town is buzzing with epic festival energy. Suddenly, a super familiar voice calls out to him. It's Uncle Bartle, the cheerful vegetable shopkeeper. He waves, asking if Theo is solo today. Theo quickly explains that Ray and the rest are currently out on a hunt. Bartle nods, totally getting that they're super busy, but Theo spots the crazy, huge pile of fresh groceries in his arms. Bartle gets instantly fired up, loudly shouting that he's stocking up because the Hero Festival happens just once yearly. This is his golden chance to earn big, so he's going all out today. Theo laughs awkwardly, telling him to do his absolute best. But Bartle instantly pivots, flashing a huge grin, saying Theo will definitely be helping him out. Just as Theo stammers out a super hesitant reply, a female voice cuts in smoothly, noting that Theo is extremely popular as always. Captain Yui appears with her awesome night squad, and everyone instantly recognizes her. She politely greets everyone, and Theo casually mentions it's super rare seeing her patrolling. Yui explains they're heavily boosting security for the upcoming festival. Beside Theo, poor Uncle Bartle is sweating intensely, totally shocked that Theo actually knows such an elite. Now, pay close attention here. While Theo looks incredibly confused, Bartle is internally panicking because he knows Yui is a massive historical legend. She's a brilliant prodigy, the youngest captain ever, with strength easily rivaling S-rank heroes. Yui chuckles softly at his dramatic reaction. She admits her reputation is real, but points out the truly exceptional hero is the guy standing right beside him. Bartle looks completely baffled, so Yui turns her focus toward Theo. She formally thanks him for his amazing help resolving the shady incident with Captain Bram earlier. She reveals Bram had deep, dark underworld ties, but thanks to their joint investigation, they completely wiped out the awful corruption in the Order. However, she admits, this massive cleanup left them severely short-handed, keeping her constantly on duty. Theo sincerely thanks her for her hard work, but Yui quickly adds she actually has a big favor too. Stepping super close, Yui reminds him of her previous promise about when the crucial time arrives. She says she has incredibly high hopes for him, then gracefully walks off. Theo visibly sweats, nervously muttering that he has absolutely no clue how to handle pressure. He then catches Bartle slowly backing away with pure awe, and confusedly asks what's happening. Bartle tries denying it, but you and I both know he's totally convinced Theo is legendary. Theo panics completely, frantically waving his hands, screaming that he's just an ordinary guy and everything is misunderstood. Bartle remains highly skeptical, muttering about that ordinary claim, while Theo desperately insists it's a joke. Deep down, his real identity definitely echoes in his worried mind. Meanwhile, among the marching knights, Shilty is extremely frustrated. He aggressively asks Captain Yui if this plan is okay. When Yui calmly asks what's wrong, Shilty snaps, loudly complaining about relying on that mysterious, naive man. Back with the moving squad, Yui continues chatting with Shilty. She bluntly tells him they simply must use absolutely every single piece on the grand board. Shilty makes a totally surprised noise, and Yui admits winning won't be easy, but she firmly highlights that this current situation is a completely different challenge. Altogether, Shilty slowly agrees. She's right, openly admitting he thought she just took a personal liking to Theo. Yui playfully scolds him, warning that seeing things from one side is terrible. Shilty pushes back, arguing that using outside help seriously ruins the proud honor of their brave knights. Yui asks if he forgot something huge. She absolutely hates trouble. She vividly pictures a terrifying future where the Demon King returns, pointing out that if disaster strikes, the knights must fight the enemy directly head-on. She grimly adds that during such an epic battle, many brave people would be sacrificed, and merely thinking about cleaning up that massive disaster makes her despise responsibility even more. Shilty boldly asks the tough question, what if that mysterious man fails? Yui flashes a confident smile, declaring that when the moment arrives, everyone will just bravely do their best. She turns to depart, quietly muttering that worrying endlessly about problems that haven't happened yet is totally pointless. She commands Shilty to strictly focus on their current security duties right in front of them. The loyal knights shout a loud yes. As she leaves, we see Theo just staring completely blankly. Shifting back to the Grand Mansion, Theo steps outside, finding Alvin and Cannon totally collapsed face down on the hard pavement. He confusedly asks what they're doing. They both let out super weak groans, and Cannon weakly whispers she's too hungry to even move. A little while later, inside, their table is gloriously piled high with stacked empty bowls. Cannon pats her stuffed stomach. As for Alvin, trust me, you and I will love what comes next. Let us jump right in. Theo looks completely drained, begging his wild crew to please eat before things get absolutely crazy. Alvin sarcastically praises Cannon in the background, sparking a loud, fiery argument over his total lack of appreciation. Meanwhile, Theo calmly slides a sweet fancy glass right in front of her. She blinks curiously, asking what it is. Theo explains it is a sweet chocolate parfait for dessert. Cannon digs right in, screaming that it tastes amazing. She claims dessert gets a separate stomach, instantly demanding round 2 on the spot. Watching the meat cook, Theo asks where Ray went. Keenan explains she probably ran off to report their latest epic quest completion. Alvin chimes in that Ray insisted she was fine solo, so they both simply came back home first. Cannon happily notes she should be returning any second. Continuing right from there, Ray finally makes it back, but she has completely collapsed face down on the cold pavement outside, looking just as utterly exhausted as the others. Inside, Cannon is completely slumped over the table next to a massive stack of empty bowls. She groans about being totally stuffed, though she jokingly begs for another huge serving. Meanwhile, Ray finally drags herself inside, happily devouring a sweet parfait. She cheerfully admits to Theo that she held back her massive hunger all day just to feast on his amazing cooking. Theo, always the ultimate provider, hands over dessert with a warm smile. Now, the entire squad, Alvin, Cannon, and Ray, are lined up at the counter devouring parfaits. Cannon joyfully repeats that sweet desserts use a completely different stomach. Alvin points out Ray totally could have eaten something while out exploring, but Ray completely ignores him, firmly deciding that if she eats anything, she wants to be absolutely stuffed on Theo's amazing cooking. Cannon strongly agrees, declaring she can never eat regular meals anymore. Even Alvin admits that once you experience this incredible taste, going back is extremely hard. In perfect sync, all three raise their empty glasses and loudly scream for seconds, leaving poor Theo to just awkwardly accept his culinary fate. Later that night, the house falls perfectly silent. Alvin and Cannon are totally asleep. But pay close attention here. Theo tries to quickly prep some ingredients, but his knife literally just bounces right off the food. He grunts, trying to force it, but the blade is completely ruined. He takes a step back, quickly realizing this will not work. Theo inspects the worn knife, muttering that the sharpness has dropped. He seriously wonders if he should just try to sharpen it. Suddenly, Ray sneaks up behind him, jokingly accusing him of plotting something evil with that incredibly serious face. Theo instantly panics and denies it, explaining he is just stressed because the blade is dull. Ray immediately offers a fix, saying she knows an awesome shop for a perfect replacement. Theo thinks it over and totally agrees. It is time for an upgrade, so they head out. They arrive at Ray's recommended shop, but it is definitely not a normal home goods store. This place is literally packed with massive swords, axes, and heavy chains. Theo looks around nervously, stammering that he thought they came for a simple kitchen knife. He admits the blades look sharp, but these are absolutely hardcore deadly weapons. From the dark backroom, a very rough voice calls out, recognizing Ray immediately. A huge scarred blacksmith steps forward, looking like a total battle-hardened veteran. He casually asks Ray what beast she is trying to hack apart this time, guessing maybe a dragon or troll king. Ray furiously screams back that she just wants a basic kitchen knife for home use. Sweating, the blacksmith reminds her this is a weapon shop. He suggests hitting up a basic general store for cooking tools instead. Think he kicks them out? Watch this. He suddenly freezes in absolute shock. The blacksmith turns to loudly shout at his assistant in the back, wildly asking about a special knife supposedly forged for the upcoming Hero Festival. His assistant yells right back that some guy already grabbed it 2 days ago, turning right back to his customers. The blacksmith tells Ray that if they had just arrived a little earlier, he might have been able to hand over that exact one. However, he reveals he recently forged another crazy blade, warning them to seriously brace themselves for the wild details. He proudly explains he forged this new blade from a pure unicorn horn, calling it something truly special. Theo stares in pure awe at the rare material, but Ray looks completely blank, asking if that is actually supposed to be impressive. The furious blacksmith loudly screams that it obviously is. He wildly boasts that this legendary knife is so incredibly sharp, it could easily slice an entire kitchen right in half, though he quickly admits that might just be a slight exaggeration. Ray instantly decides she wants it. The blacksmith notices her interest, but reveals one massive catch. To secure the blade, she must win a crazy contest. A confused Theo listens closely as the blacksmith clarifies. It is the massive competition to decide the dancing shrine maiden, and this incredible knife is offered as an amazing bonus prize. Ray slowly nods along, but then pauses, bluntly asking what exactly a dancing shrine maiden is. The shocked blacksmith looks utterly baffled that she doesn't know, loudly asking if she hasn't seen it once. Meanwhile, Theo just awkwardly raises his hand to admit he has absolutely no clue either. That is where we leave it. The legendary Hero Festival is finally starting. Alright, jump in with me. Every year, this huge festival holds a contest to pick the final ritual dancer. Without blinking, Rai asks if there is still time to sign up. Theo completely panics, asking if she is seriously doing this. Rai just nods casually, asking him if there is actually a problem here, while Theo happily drifts off into a fantasy, totally convinced Rai would look ridiculously gorgeous in that shrine maiden outfit. The local blacksmith chimes in with some practical advice. He warns them the sign-up deadline is literally today, meaning they really need to rush over to the festival grounds right now. Cut to the bustling town square, where two random guys are running the main reception desk. Ray marches straight up to them and asks if this is the contest sign-up spot. One clerk suddenly nudges his buddy, whispering that she looks super familiar. The other guy just stares, totally convinced. It cannot be her. Sweating, he nervously asks her name just to verify, and she simply replies Ray Silverhorn. He instantly breaks out in a cold sweat, realizing the legendary S-rank adventurer is actually standing right there in front of him. The entire crowd at the desk absolutely loses their minds, finally realizing this random applicant is actually the legendary S-rank adventurer, Ray Silverhorn. Nobody can believe a total VIP like her would actually join this contest. Rai totally ignores the wild gossip, just asking if the entry deadline passed. The clerk, completely flustered by her awesome presence, stammers that entries are still open. He quickly adds that for an S-rank hero, he will gladly waive all normal requirements. The surrounding crowd murmurs in awe, calling her incredibly cool and competent. But Rai just bluntly states her rank means nothing. She is competing as herself. The desk clerk, going full fanboy now, begs for an autograph. Ray calmly agrees, grabbing the pen he nervously offers. Pay close attention here. A dark-haired girl suddenly storms right up, furiously accusing them of trying to bribe their way inside. She loudly declares she does not care about Rai being S-rank. Anyone with such shady, wicked motives will never become the true chosen priestess. She aggressively screams that no matter who she faces, she has absolutely zero intention of handing over her beloved dancing priestess title today. Theo, completely baffled by this random, crazy hostility, politely asks who she is. This just makes her way angrier. She loudly screams out that her name is Melia Lewitt. She insists that if they are entering the contest, they should know the champion. A nearby bystander is utterly shocked that Theo and Ray do not recognize who she is. Theo awkwardly admits they really have zero clue. The guy explains Melia is a legendary dancer, chosen as the big festival shrine maiden for 4 entire years in a row. He adds she is insanely popular, and massive crowds visit the festival specifically just to watch her perform in those incredibly elaborate gowns. The dude asks if they just arrived in the country, highly recommending they go watch her perform at least once. Theo nervously tries laughing it off, saying it is not like that, while Rai just bluntly states she is not interested and walks away. Ray marches right past Melia, coolly stating that it absolutely does not matter who her opponent is, because she is going to win. Melia is left completely stunned by that confidence, thinking Ray certainly has guts. As Ray walks off, she internally promises she will absolutely claim that victory. Meanwhile, Melia stays behind, angrily glaring daggers at their backs. Theo quickly catches up to Ray, scratching his head, commenting on how intense that whole crazy encounter just was. Later, Melia walks alone down a stone street, anxiously biting on her thumbnail. Her face twists in pure anger as she fiercely rants about the S-rank adventurer, hating how everyone seems to be totally fawning over them. She stomps down a shadowy alleyway, furiously muttering she cannot forgive this messed up situation, swearing to never surrender her title no matter what happens. You and I know this screams trouble. A dark hooded figure suddenly appears right behind her, smoothly asking if she wants some help. Melia violently spins around, demanding to know who they are. The mysterious hooded figure just ignores her question, noting she is the wildly famous dancing priestess. However, the creepy stranger ominously adds that unfortunately this year, she will not make the cut. Melia furiously yells again, demanding their identity. The hooded figure just smirks, calling her quite rude, claiming to have already answered that exact question just a brief moment ago. Deep inside that dark alley, the hooded figure slowly reaches a hand toward Melia, claiming they just want to help her win. The scene completely shifts, showing time quickly passing by, as the narration notes that the highly anticipated festival day is finally drawing near. We spot Melia wandering the dark city streets, looking deeply troubled. Meanwhile, the Knights and Theo's squad are super busy, making all their final preparations for this massive event. The vibe switches up completely as intense, loud music suddenly blasts from the speakers. Inside a bright dance studio, an incredibly passionate, curly-haired instructor is intensely coaching the group. She loudly shouts her core philosophy that dance equals singing, urging her students to use their entire bodies to fully express themselves. She screams to go all out today, and trust me, you will want to stick around. Canon, Ray, and Theo are rocking workout gear, looking totally pumped, shouting a loud yes, right back. Let's dive in. The instructor announces the music is starting and hits play on the cassette deck. As the beat drops, Rai looks super focused. The three of them raise their hands in perfect rhythm, fully ready to start their routine. Moving in total sync, the trio strikes a cool one-legged pose while loudly shouting, "Hey!" Together, they quickly shift right into another dynamic formation, yelling out, "Wonder!" with massive smiles. Watching them closely, the instructor builds up the hype. Then he screams for them to hit the finale with a dramatic, over-the-top finishing shout. Kanon is absolutely beaming as she dances. She looks light on her feet, genuinely having an amazing time with this fun choreography. Right beside her, Theo and Rai are matching that exact energy. They are both grinning and striking dynamic poses. They're fully committed to the performance, with sparkles seemingly flying all around them. Back in the studio, the exhausted group takes a breather with water bottles on the floor. Wiping off some sweat, Theo mentions that today's dance felt great. Kanon totally agrees, noting that they are finally getting perfectly in sync. Smiling, Theo asks the biggest question. If they keep this up, does she think they can actually win the whole tournament? Ray is immediately supportive, telling him of course they can. But Kanon suddenly snaps. Her face turns absolutely furious as she screams that it's obviously impossible. Kanon launches right into a lecture, demanding to know what they think the shrine maidens of dance are actually meant for. Pay attention here. She explains dancing isn't just a show. It's strictly a ritual offering to the hero. She warns them that with such flashy modern moves, they are completely disrespecting the tradition. Theo tries telling her to calm down, but she strikes a dramatic pose, yelling, "Absolutely not." She claims dance is pure emotion, perfectly mimicking their eccentric teacher's intense finishing move. Catchphrase. Outside the building, Melia watches their practice through a window with a look of pure disgust. She mutters angrily that they are just a bunch of silly jokers. Back inside, Kanon keeps scolding the group. She tells them they must start by studying history, and the guys meekly respond with the simple "Yes, ma'am." Back outside, Melia trembles with absolute rage, fiercely vowing to herself that she will never lose to losers like them. Melia walks away from the studio down the street, scratching her head in deep frustration. She wonders if she's just overthinking things. She tries to reassure herself, thinking that even if that woman is a legendary S-rank adventurer, she's a total amateur when it comes to dancing. She tells herself that if a time ever comes when she loses to someone like that, it would mean something is seriously, totally wrong. In a dark alleyway, Melia is talking to the hooded figure once again. You probably saw this coming. The figure confirms her worst fears: the tournament is totally rigged, and the winner has already been decided in advance. He asks her if she didn't find it incredibly strange that an S-rank adventurer participated so naturally. Then, leaning in, he drops a massive secret. Just between them, Ray Silverhorn and the captain of this country's knights are actually related by family. Melia freezes in pure shock at the news. Stammering, she asks, "So what?" She demands to know how he even has that crazy information. The hooded figure just chuckles, claiming he has a special connection, though he says the source doesn't really matter anyway. He raises his hand to stop her questions, quickly clarifying that he really doesn't want her to misunderstand. He is not her enemy. Placing his hand against the brick wall, he activates a glowing magic circle, telling her simply that he wants to help. The scene shifts to a much darker location. A heavy stone door slides open with a loud grinding sound, revealing the hooded figure standing right amidst the dust and shadows. Melia stands right behind him, her eyes wide with apprehension as she stammers. She looks down to see a staircase descending into the earth, totally shocked to discover a hidden basement here. The hooded figure beckons her forward, instructing her to come with him. He tells her that from this exact point on, it will be just the two of them. As they begin to descend the stone steps into the darkness, he suggests they have a very secret conversation. Melia follows, but looks at him with deep suspicion. She demands to know who he really is, and if he's truly the person she thinks he is. Melia looks around the damp stone walls as they walk down, remarking that she had no idea a place like this existed within the city. The mysterious hooded figure replies that no one knows about it except for the two of them. Now Melia presses him for real answers, asking what his ultimate goal is and why he brought her to such a special hidden location. The figure dismisses her concerns, stating it's a simple story. A creepy grin forms beneath his hood as he plainly tells her that he really likes her dancing. Meanwhile, back in the city, the festival atmosphere is in full swing. The streets are packed with food stalls, and someone comments on how delicious everything looks. Lady Toru samples a meat skewer, coolly judging the taste as merely decent. That's where we leave it. Nearby, Geisher stares at the meat with a troubled expression, but for a totally different reason. Stick with me here. She asks if they should buy everything and hire these cooks as personal chefs. Sweating bullets, Theo gently reminds her, that might be a bit overkill. Just then, Kanon spots the young noble and shouts out to Lady Toru. Theo looks totally shocked to see them, and instantly, this reunion turns into pure chaos. Rei is absolutely stuffing her face, mumbling total gibberish through the snacks. Naturally, Kanon snaps at her, demanding she show at least a little bit of lady-like manners. Flashing a super smug grin, Kanon turns to Toru and teases that she has actually grown into a really fine woman. Theo desperately tries playing peacemaker, while Chorl just happily points out how well the girls get along. Toru is absolutely not having it. She snaps back that while people change, Kanon's flat chest hasn't changed whatsoever. Kanon yells that they are definitely not friends, and Toru screams right back, completely agreeing that they absolutely hate each other. Captain Yui casually strolls up to the group, smiling as she points out that despite all their loud denying, these two actually seem to get along perfectly. Theo greets the captain, asking if she is out on patrol, but Yui explains she is actually off duty today and politely asks to tag along with them. Kanon jokes around, asking if they should be arrested. Theo awkwardly admits they are completely slacking off from their daily practice. Walking together, Yui asks what they are doing. Theo mentions they are practicing for the Big Hero Festival dance. Yui completely misunderstands and literally gasps in pure horror. She panics, asking if Theo is becoming a dancing priest. Theo shuts that down fast, calling it ridiculous. He quickly clears up that Rei is the one actually performing. Yui freezes on the spot. She just repeats, "My sister," in absolute shock, desperately trying to wrap her head around this wild situation. She tells her sister she had zero clue she even liked dancing. Rei just shrugs, casually mentioning she literally started 3 days ago. Yui keeps pushing, asking if she really wants the dancing priestess title, but Rei just bluntly answers that she has never even seen one before. Yui just stammers, completely confused why Rei is entering this contest if she doesn't care about the big title. "You see this coming, right?" Rei beams, revealing her true motive. She just really wants that shiny championship prize knife. Yui slumps over. It makes perfect sense for her sister. Theo looks absolutely shocked by this, but Yui just lets out a heavy sigh. She tells Rei it sounds like she is still living her best life, admitting she was a total fool for expecting any deeper, poetic meaning here. Theo tries jumping in, saying he hasn't even spoken yet, but his own stomach completely betrays him with a super loud growl. Taking the cue, Kanon mentions she is starving, and Rei instantly demands a massive, hearty main dish. Giving in, Theo sighs and promises to cook them something back home. Both girls cheer instantly. Lady Toru pumps her fists, excitedly, suggesting they should all eat together. The whole group stares back at her in pure surprise. She suddenly gets super shy, fidgeting with her fingers. She mumbles that food just tastes better shared. Nearby, Lady Chorl happily enjoys a skewer while Yui and Alba watch them with warm smiles. Theo enthusiastically agrees. He tells Toru she is exactly right, openly praising her surprisingly mature way of thinking. The whole squad absolutely cheers for this epic meal plan, but Toru instantly flips out. She yells at the sky about being treated like a baby, threatening another rebellion. Pretty soon, their table is absolutely packed with roast chicken steaks and fresh salads. This dinner party is a massive hit. Kanon, Rei, and Theo happily chat away while they feast. Chorl and Toru really enjoy their meal together, and Yui shares a nice drink with the butler, Alba. Eventually, everyone waves goodbye, leaving behind a giant pile of empty plates. As night falls under a bright full moon, Poor Theo is left standing at the sink, tackling the massive cleanup alone. Scrubbing the plates, Theo just thinks about how much everyone devoured. He admits it was totally worth the effort, but cooking 9 massive servings has left him pretty exhausted. Working away, he suddenly realizes this is actually his very first hero festival. Looking back, he remembers his strict days with the Night Order. Back then, they never would have approved of anyone going out and just having simple fun like this. He smiles to himself, now genuinely hyped for this upcoming festival. Now, pay close attention here. Melia's home life flashback? Absolutely brutal. A sharp slap echoes through the quiet room as Melia's mother strikes her face. Screaming at her to focus and dance properly, the woman aggressively looms over her daughter, yelling and dropping some impossibly heavy pressure. She mentions hearing that Ray Silverhorn is joining the big contest this year. She harshly asks Melia if she really thinks her half-hearted dancing will actually get chosen over her. She heavily stresses that this year is critical. They are aiming for their 5th consecutive win. She fiercely commands Melia to think much more carefully about everything at stake. Broken down on the floor, Melia just quietly agrees, whispering, "Yes, mother." The mother harshly grabs Melia's face, pulling her extremely close with an intense, terrifyingly manipulative stare. She tells Melia to listen closely, claiming she is only saying this because she cares, not out of malice. It is an absolutely classic, toxic guilt trip. So what do you and I make of this? She warns Melia that losing her spot means she is finished. Once you fall forever. Stick with me. A terrified Melia totally gets it. Her mother glares, demanding absolute victory. No exceptions allowed. Back in her room, Melia sits alone on the bed, totally crushed by the intense weight of those heavy, echoing expectations. She quietly mutters to herself about her mom and that legendary dancing maiden title. She realizes that claiming this exact honor is the only way to make her mom smile. Her mind flashes back to a luxurious party where excited guests swarmed them, praising the famous dancing shrine maiden's incredible family. In this memory, the eager crowd hypes up the routine, calling it deeply moving. Melia's mom loves the spotlight, proudly bragging that she personally trained her gifted daughter to dance so beautifully. The crowd totally agrees, claiming elite talent definitely runs in their family. Meanwhile, Melia just hovers in the dark background, looking completely lost and totally ignored by everyone. From that exact moment, keeping her mother happy became her one and only driving force. Seeing her mom smile was everything. That is why she feels completely trapped. Suddenly, the scene cuts to Melia gripping a super sketchy, dark bottle in her own hands. That creepy hooded guy from before chuckles, hoping she absolutely loves his special gift. He casually calls it a present. Melia freaks out instantly, loudly asking if he seriously expects her to use toxic stuff on her rival. The guy waves his hands wildly, telling her to chill out and smoothly denying such a truly crazy, wild idea. He strictly claims nobody mentioned toxic tricks, but Melia fiercely demands to know what the sketchy item really is then. Watch closely. Throwing his arms wide by the bookshelf, the cloaked guy calls this stuff a medicine, claiming it is way more potent than any basic trap. He promises that drinking it will unlock her hidden potential, calling it an absolutely beautiful, wonderful miracle. Walking away, he warmly wishes her luck. Snapping back to reality, Melia nervously stares at that highly sinister bottle sitting on her small table. His tempting words echo, making her seriously hesitate. She desperately wonders if she can win, naturally, but the massive pressure and heavy temptation are clearly breaking her fragile spirit down. The shadowy figure keeps playing wicked mind games. He looms over her in the darkness, tauntingly asking if she will actually reject this powerful magic potion. He coldly reminds her about her genius rival, Ray Silverhorn, stressing that the entire world already praises Ray's incredible beauty and talent. He ruthlessly pokes at her deep, painful family insecurities. He sneers, saying she desperately wants all the glorious honor and respect her mother once enjoyed. He delivers a crushing emotional blow, firmly warning that losing means her mom will be forever disappointed and hold a massive, heartbreaking grudge against her. The dark voice in her head constantly repeats the risks, her grand reputation, her pride, and her entire future. It coldly whispers that staying ordinary simply means everyone around her is going to lose absolutely everything they hold dear. You and I feel this tension, right? The harsh voice claims it is over, leaving Melia looking totally haunted. Suddenly waking from this terrifying nightmare, Melia totally snaps. Gripping her head, she starts screaming for the cruel voices to stop, repeating it endlessly in pure, overwhelming panic. She desperately tries grounding herself, loudly declaring she is a true dancing shrine maiden. Complete desperation takes over as she fiercely yells she will never surrender that noble title. Staring intensely at the sketchy bottle on the table, she firmly tells herself losing is impossible and angrily swears to protect her rightful position. Looking at her own warped reflection inside the dark liquid, Melia forcefully promises that she will achieve absolute victory without fail. Moving on, the plot shifts gears. With all these wild motives mixing together, Melia's desperation, noble expectations, and eager adventurers, the epic big day finally arrives. We see Lady Toru and her mom entering town, the dance squad finishing up practice, and Yua guiding her awesome knights right through the busy streets. The bright sun rises on this morning. Theo energetically throws open his wooden window shutters with a huge clatter. He happily looks outside, scanning the bright sky, and cheerfully notes there is not a single cloud, enthusiastically shouting about the beautifully perfect weather. Trust me, this hero festival will be absolutely legendary.